Hi guys, tonight we step back in time to the harsh, cold world of the medieval peasants who faced winters so bitter that survival was never a guarantee. We'll discover how these resilient people crafted shelters from the resources at their disposal, learning not just how they kept warm, but how their creativity and resourcefulness shaped the way they lived in a world so vastly different from ours. You probably won't survive this, no. Seriously. Their winters were brutal, but by the end of this, you'll have a deeper appreciation for the warmth of your own bed. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you listening from? And what time is it there, late enough for a historical bedtime story, perhaps? Now, dim the lights, and let's step into the past. You stand at the edge of a frost-covered field. The ground beneath your feet is hard and unforgiving, as if nature herself is reminding you of the cold that has begun to settle over the land. Snowflakes drift lazily from the sky, a stark contrast to the wild winds that whip through the trees, cutting through the landscape like icy blades. It's the beginning of winter, and the peasants around you are already preparing for the long, grueling months ahead. As much as you might want to retreat into the warmth of a modern home, you know that you're in the middle of a world where survival is never guaranteed. The cold is relentless, and for the peasants of the medieval world, the struggle to endure the harshest winters was a fight that began long before the first snowflake fell. You watch as the villagers hustle, gathering firewood, repairing their homes, and fortifying what little they have against the coming freeze. Their efforts seem frantic, but also precise, born out of necessity and centuries of tradition. You can see it in their movements, the way they gather stones and timber, the careful placement of each piece of thatch on the roof, the way they pause for a moment to listen to the wind, assessing its strength. In a few days, the frost will settle into the bones of everything around you, and every breath will become a visible sign of your existence. This is survival, medieval style. For the peasants, winter is not just a season, it is a trial of endurance. The homes they inhabit, humble as they may seem, are the very things that will determine whether they live or die. They must rely on these structures not only for shelter, but for warmth, protection, and a semblance of comfort in an unforgiving world. You're about to enter their world, where every decision has life or death consequences. Welcome to the coldest of winters, where the art of shelter building takes on a new meaning. It's a tough existence. You probably won't survive this, but you will learn something valuable about how these resourceful peasants managed to live through it. The techniques they developed, refined over generations, are more than just survival tactics. They're reflections of the very human spirit that refuses to be crushed under the weight of winter's harshness. So, as you stand here in the snow, surrounded by the buzz of activity, take a deep breath and look around. Everything you see, the houses, the tools, the people, has been carefully crafted with the singular goal of surviving the winter. Before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you listening from? What time is it in your corner of the world? It's late here, and I imagine the quiet is settling in around you, just as it will soon settle in around the peasants. Now, dim the lights, and let's get started on this journey through time. The first step in this winter survival story begins with the preparation, the act of turning nature's harshness into something manageable. As the peasants scatter in search of materials, it's hard to imagine that something so cold and unforgiving can provide the very resources that will keep them alive. The preparations begin before the first snow falls. It's not enough to simply rely on the warmth of a fire and the comfort of a thick blanket. No, in this world, a true shelter is a fortress against the cold, a structure built with careful planning, unwavering hands, and the bounty of nature itself. You're here now, in the heart of a small village, surrounded by the hurried movements of peasants. They know winter will arrive soon, and once it does, it will be unforgiving. This, of course, is just one of the reasons they've already started laying the foundation for their survival. Each action they take is born from a deep understanding of the land and the season, knowledge passed down through generations. One of the first things you notice is the simplicity of the structures. The peasant homes, known as cottages or huts, are far from grand, but they're crafted with a deep respect for their surroundings. What looks like a haphazard assortment of logs and straw is, in fact, a highly efficient shelter designed to trap warmth and keep out the harshest elements of the season. These homes are built using resources that are readily available, and the process is a cooperative effort. Everyone in the village contributes in some way, whether by gathering materials, constructing, or providing their expertise. The most important material, without question, is wood. The forests around the village are both a blessing and a challenge. The peasants know every tree, every branch that can be used for building. You watch as they chop down small trees, carefully selecting which to fell, ensuring that the forest will continue to thrive while providing them with the materials they need. The trunks are cut into manageable lengths and hauled back to the village, where they'll be used to form the framework of the home. These logs are often laid out horizontally, stacked in a crisscross fashion, creating the basic skeleton of the house. Between the logs, the peasants fill in gaps with mud, moss, or clay, sealing off any cracks that would allow the winter air to seep through. Historians still argue whether mud or clay was the preferred choice for these walls in different regions. But what's clear is that the peasants knew how to make the most of what they had. Mud, while simple, is a powerful insulator. The earth's natural ability to store warmth is essential in keeping the inside of the shelter as comfortable as possible during the cold nights. Over time, the walls would harden, becoming impenetrable to the icy wind. Some houses, particularly in areas with a steady supply of clay, would have walls made entirely of this material, which helped maintain an even temperature, whether it was freezing outside or not. The roof, however, is perhaps the most vital part of the peasant home. With winter snow accumulating quickly, the roof needed to be steeply pitched, so that the weight of the snow wouldn't cause it to collapse. Yet, it wasn't simply about the angle of the roof. The materials used were just as important. Thatched roofs, made from reeds, straw, or even heather, were a common feature. These roofs, though relatively easy to construct, required great care. The thatch was laid in overlapping layers, creating a waterproof barrier that would shed rain and snow alike. Over time, the weight of the thatch would compact, making it even more effective at keeping the cold at bay. In many villages, the roof was the first line of defense against the brutal winter, and its construction was a skill passed down from elder to apprentice, from generation to generation. But there's more to these shelters than just the materials. The placement of the home within the landscape is another aspect that ensures the peasant's survival. You might think that a house is just a house, but here, everything is deliberate. The orientation of the building where it faces was a key consideration in maximizing exposure to sunlight during the day. You see, sunlight, however weak, was a precious commodity. Peasants would position their homes to ensure they received whatever daylight there was, allowing them to warm the interior slightly during the brief daylight hours. In many cases, the homes were also built on slightly raised ground, to avoid the dampness that would inevitably settle in the lowlands during winter. This simple yet effective tactic kept the homes dry, preventing the cold from creeping in through the ground. Inside the homes, the shelter's real secret to survival is revealed. The central hearth, sometimes little more than a fire pit in the middle of the floor, is where the majority of warmth is generated. It's not a fireplace like you might imagine, but rather an open flame, a fire that provides light and heat to everyone who gathers around it. The heat from the hearth permeates the home, warming the stone and clay walls, and to a degree, the air. There's something deeply comforting about the crackle of a fire, the smell of burning wood, the warmth it spreads throughout the room. For peasants, this hearth was the lifeblood of their winter survival, a constant presence throughout the cold months. But here's the catch. This fire is shared by everyone in the house. Whether it's a small family or an extended group living under the same roof, The fire must be carefully managed to ensure it doesn't burn out. The ashes must be regularly cleaned, and fresh firewood must be constantly brought in. During particularly cold nights, the fire may need to be stoked every few hours to keep the heat from fading away. You can hear the peasants now as they work together, chopping, carrying, stacking, constantly replenishing the fire that will keep them from freezing. It's a communal effort that strengthens the ties between families, a shared responsibility that reminds everyone of their reliance on one another. Historians still debate how the communal aspect of firewood collection evolved in various parts of medieval Europe. Some argue that in certain villages, firewood was considered a common good, while in others, it was the responsibility of the head of the household to ensure there was enough fuel for the winter. Regardless, one thing is certain: the fire and the wood that fueled it were lifelines. As the snow begins to fall in greater quantities, you watch as the peasant families continue their preparations, knowing that soon they will retreat into their homes for the winter, relying on these small but vital shelters to keep them safe from the cold. The air is filled with the sounds of hushed conversations and the rhythmic chopping of wood. They've done this before, many times over. Each year, they face the same bitter cold, the same long, dark nights. Yet, there's something deeply reassuring about the knowledge that these homes, built by hand and forged by necessity, will stand firm against the harshest elements. The peasants know this well. They've lived through many winters, and they'll live through many more. And so, with each log stacked, each piece of straw added to the thatch, they come a little closer to the protection they need. The bitter wind may howl outside, and the snow may pile up in thick drifts, but within these homes, the peasant families will find warmth. They'll gather around the hearth, pull their thick woolen blankets close, and wait for the winter to pass. You too are beginning to feel the weight of the cold as it settles around you, but you know that for now, the shelter you've stepped into is enough. You take a deep breath, letting the warmth of the fire and the knowledge of survival surround you. The peasant homes of the medieval world, though often humble, were designed with survival in mind. It's not hard to imagine how, when the first frosts of winter touched the earth, those within these modest structures would spring into action. You've seen it yourself, how the villagers quickly move to gather the necessary materials. They know that the cold will soon settle in, and their homes must be ready to protect them from its brutal touch. But just as essential as the logs, straw, and mud is the way these materials are selected and gathered, a process that reveals the deep relationship between the peasants and the natural world. When you step into the forest with the peasants, you notice the careful way they scan the trees. The felling of timber is done with intent. It's not just about cutting down what's in the way. The peasants select certain trees that are known for their resilience, those that will provide sturdy beams for the framework of their shelters. They often choose young trees or those that are already weakened, ensuring that the forest remains intact for future generations. It's a delicate balance of survival and stewardship, one that's been perfected over hundreds of years. What's particularly fascinating about this process is that it was not just about gathering wood. The peasants also harvested smaller materials, moss, branches, and even stones. These humble resources would go on to form the walls, insulation, and flooring of their homes. You might not realize it, but the stones and rocks that are gathered don't just serve as a foundation, they help with keeping the home dry by allowing moisture to escape. This simple yet brilliant technique ensures that the home doesn't become a damp, freezing shelter when the frost sets in. One particularly curious aspect of shelter building is the use of moss. In many regions, moss was harvested from the forest floor to provide an insulating layer between the wooden framework of the house. It's easy to overlook, but moss, with its natural ability to trap moisture and air, provided an additional barrier against the cold. The peasants would layer it between the logs, further reducing the wind's ability to sneak through the cracks. It's a surprising use of nature's elements, and it speaks to the ingenuity of these people who, by necessity, turned the forest into their greatest ally. Now, If you take a closer look at the walls of these homes, you'll see the mud and clay at work. While many think of medieval houses as crude, little more than shelters thrown together hastily, the reality is much more complex. You'll notice that the peasants were meticulous when it came to filling in the gaps between logs. The mud used to seal the walls was mixed with straw, which not only helped bind the mixture together but also added an element of flexibility. This mud would dry hard, but the straw would give it just enough give to avoid cracking. The peasants were, in essence, creating a living structure, one that would expand and contract with the changing seasons. There's still an ongoing discussion among historians about whether the use of straw in the mud mix was consistent across medieval Europe. Some argue that in northern regions, where the winters were harsher, more straw would have been used for insulation. Others believe that the mix varied more according to local conditions. This debate, while seemingly small, reveals the diverse approaches medieval people had toward building homes that could withstand the cold. And isn't it fascinating that something as simple as straw, so easily overlooked, was crucial to the survival of these communities? Inside the home, the hearth becomes the heart of the peasant's existence. The fire pit is a central feature of the space, and its placement is never random. When constructing the shelter, the peasants always make sure to build the hearth at the heart of the home, literally and figuratively. A well-placed fire not only provides warmth, but also keeps the air within the home dry, reducing the risks of moisture-related illnesses. Smoke, however, is another matter. Without a proper chimney, the smoke tends to curl and linger within the house, especially during the long, still nights of winter. This, of course, leads to a thick, acrid smell that permeates everything. Over time, the interior of the house would be infused with the scent of burning wood, a smell that became almost comforting to those who lived through the cold nights. It's a smell you would come to associate with warmth, with survival. Scholars have long debated whether the constant presence of smoke inside the house was a serious health risk. Some argue that the long exposure to wood smoke could have contributed to respiratory problems, while others maintain that the warm, dry air helped protect against the dampness of winter, which could have led to worse ailments. There's still no clear consensus on this, but what is certain is that the fire was central to both the warmth and the community aspect of the home. The fire brought people together, providing a place to cook, eat, talk, and sleep in relative warmth. It was the lifeblood of the winter months. One unexpected benefit of living in such tight quarters, surrounded by warmth and smoke, was the sense of closeness it fostered. In many ways, this shared experience gathering around the fire, sharing the warmth, enduring the cold together created a strong sense of community. Peasants were not isolated in their homes. They were part of a larger network of families, working in unison to survive the harsh months. The communal aspect of winter survival was more than just a practical necessity, it was also a social one. In fact, many families would open their homes to others during the worst of the cold, offering shelter to those who might have less than they did. These communal bonds, forged in the crucible of winter, were as important as any structural element in the peasant home. As you stand there, watching the village come together, it's hard not to admire the ingenuity and perseverance of these people. The houses they build may be small, but they are efficient and designed with a deep understanding of their environment. Every piece of wood, every layer of mud, every carefully selected stone has been chosen not just for its practical use, but for its role in ensuring survival. There is an artistry to it all, one that's not often appreciated when we think about the medieval world, but one that is no less important than the grand cathedrals and castles we tend to focus on in history. And as the snow continues to fall, you can't help but feel a sense of respect for these peasants, who, despite having so little, built homes that could withstand the harshest winters. Their resourcefulness, their communal spirit, and their deep connection to the land are what kept them going, year after year. They didn't just survive the cold, they thrived in it. The next time you find yourself curled up in warmth, surrounded by the comforts of modern life, you'll perhaps remember the medieval peasants and the homes they built. Because in a world that can seem so cold and impersonal, there's something deeply comforting about the knowledge that survival, true survival, was, and always has been, built on the foundation of community, ingenuity, and the simple elements that nature provides. It's easy to forget how much effort it took just to survive through the winter months. Modern heating systems, insulation, and cozy indoor spaces have made us soft, but you, standing here in the middle of this medieval village, begin to understand just how harsh and unforgiving the cold could be for the peasants. You feel the biting wind cut across your skin, and for a moment, you shiver. This is no modern winter with a warm house to return to. This is the real deal. These people built their homes and their lives around one singular truth. Winter would come, and they had to be ready to face it. There's a quiet determination in the way the peasants work. Every piece of wood they cut, every stone they set in place, is a small victory. They understand that even the smallest gap in the wall or the slightest crack in the roof could let the cold in and make the difference between life and death. Every detail is important, down to the way the thatch is carefully placed on the roof, layer by layer, ensuring that it forms a barrier so thick and secure that not even the harshest snowstorm can penetrate it. It's a painstaking process, but one that has been perfected over generations. The thatch itself is made from materials that might seem unremarkable to us today, reeds, straw, or even rushes, but to the peasants, these were treasures from the land, carefully harvested for their insulating properties. When stacked in a certain way, they could trap air and prevent heat from escaping, creating a surprising amount of warmth for such a simple structure. The roofs are built with a gentle slope, designed to let the snow slide off as it accumulates. But the real genius is in the way the layers of thatch interlock, creating a tightly woven surface that doesn't just keep out the snow, but also protects against the wind. The materials are carefully chosen and layered to create a waterproof membrane, but that's not enough. The peasants also use animal fat, often from pigs, to coat the roof, giving it an added layer of water resistance. It's a practice that might seem strange to us today, but when you consider how quickly the weather can turn against you, it makes perfect sense. One of the most interesting tidbits about this technique is that many peasants didn't just use animal fat for waterproofing the roof, they'd also use it to seal the walls, a clever way of ensuring the cold didn't find its way into the home. It's not just about the roof, of course. The walls of these homes, made of timber, stone, and mud, are just as important in the fight against winter's chill. The key here is the insulation properties of these materials. The mud, for instance, has an incredible ability to retain warmth. When it's mixed with straw and applied to the walls, it forms a thick, insulating barrier that keeps the cold at bay. As the temperature drops outside, the warmth from the fire inside the house slowly permeates the walls, keeping the interior of the home a few precious degrees warmer. This isn't just about comfort, it's about survival. A well-insulated home is the difference between freezing to death and making it through the winter alive. And then there's the floor. The ground itself, of course, is cold. And as much as the peasants work to keep the walls and roof insulated, they also take steps to keep the cold from creeping up from beneath them. The floor, like the walls, is often made of a combination of stone and clay, creating a solid surface that doesn't absorb moisture. The peasants will sometimes cover the floor with rushes or straw, which adds a layer of warmth and comfort. It's a simple technique, but effective in preventing the cold from seeping up through the ground and into the home. In some cases, where the winters were particularly harsh, they even used animal skins to cover the floors, creating a warmer surface to walk on during the long months of winter. Historians still debate whether the choice of flooring materials varied greatly across different regions. Some scholars suggest that in colder, northern areas, peasants might have used thicker layers of straw or even animal hides to provide additional insulation. Others argue that the basic methods of flooring construction were fairly uniform throughout medieval Europe, with local variations based on what materials were available. Regardless of the specifics, what's clear is that the goal was always the same: to keep the home warm and dry. The ground, being the coldest part of any home, needed special attention. Whether it was covered in straw, hides, or clay, the peasants knew that insulating the floor was as important as insulating the walls and roof. Inside the house, the hearth is, of course, the focal point. It's where the warmth comes from, where the light flickers in the cold darkness, and where the peasants gather to cook, sleep, and share stories. But there's more to it than just warmth. The hearth also provides a social space for the family. It's a place to gather, to connect, to find a little comfort in the middle of a brutal season. Around the hearth, the family can cook their meals, warm their clothes, and even sleep during the coldest nights. The heat radiates outwards, and while it doesn't completely warm the entire house, it creates pockets of warmth that can be life-saving. It's not a perfect system by any means, but for the peasants, it's the best they could manage. One thing you'll notice as you sit near the fire is the smell of burning wood. It's a comforting, if somewhat acrid, scent that fills the room, mixing with the smell of animal fat and straw. It's a smell that tells you the fire is still going, that the heat is still there, and that you're still safe, at least for now. But it's not just the smell of the fire that fills the air. You also catch the faint, earthy scent of the walls, mud, straw, and clay. These homes, while simple, are imbued with the smells of the earth itself. They are, in a sense, part of the landscape. The materials that make up the walls, the roof, the floor, are all sourced from the land around you. They are a direct connection to the world outside. As the night grows colder, the fire flickers and crackles, casting shadows on the walls of the home. Outside, the wind picks up, howling through the trees. You can feel the chill of it even here, in the warmth of the shelter. It's a reminder that the elements are always present, always a threat. But for now, you are safe. The fire is still burning, the walls are still standing strong, and the village continues its work. The peasants have done everything they can to prepare for the worst, and now all they can do is wait. Winter will come, and they will face it together. And so, as you sit by the fire, the warmth seeping into your bones, you realize that survival isn't just about the house you live in, it's about the people who share it with you. The warmth, the shelter, the safety, it's all part of a collective effort, a shared responsibility. In the harshness of winter, it's the sense of community that keeps everyone going. The fire may be the source of warmth, but it's the bonds between the villagers that truly keep the cold at bay. The days seem to stretch on forever as winter settles in. The wind howls outside, a constant reminder of the world beyond the shelter, one that's cold, unforgiving, and utterly relentless. Inside the home, however, a different kind of life unfolds. You can hear the crackle of the fire, the soft murmur of voices, and the occasional creak of the timber as the house settles into the night. This is where life slows down, where time takes on a different rhythm. It's a world that, for all its discomforts, provides a strange kind of peace. The peasants know that winter is long, and it's not just the cold they must contend with. The lack of sunlight during these months takes a toll on everyone. They've seen it before, the slow drag of winter, the long nights that seem to stretch on without end. The hearth remains the center of it all, keeping the space warm and providing a place for the family to gather. But it's also where the routine of life shifts. People eat, talk, work, and sleep around the fire, rarely straying far from its warmth. For some, the hearth is a sanctuary, offering a brief escape from the biting cold that awaits just beyond the door. As the days grow shorter and the nights colder, you begin to notice just how much more labor-intensive life becomes. Keeping the fire burning takes work. Firewood must be constantly chopped and brought in. The ashes must be cleared regularly to ensure the fire doesn't die out. And then there's the matter of food. The peasants aren't just sitting idly by, warming their hands, they're also working tirelessly to ensure they have enough to eat. The harvest may have been plentiful in the fall, but now, during the dead of winter, their supplies are dwindling. They have learned, over the years, the importance of stockpiling. The stores of grains, root vegetables, and preserved meats are all that stand between them and starvation. One of the most striking aspects of medieval winter life is the way the peasants use every available resource to its fullest. There is no waste. Everything is reused, repurposed, and recycled. The firewood, for instance, is carefully rationed. Each log is chopped to maximize its use, and every scrap of wood that can't be burned is either used for another purpose like furniture or tools, or it's kept aside for the next fire. The same goes for food. Every part of the animal is used, nothing goes to waste. Bones become soup stock. Animal skins are used for clothing, for blankets, and even to cover the floors. The peasants are masters of resourcefulness, making do with whatever they have. This extreme economy of resources, though born out of necessity, also reflects the deep connection these people have with the land. They understand that nothing is disposable. Everything has a purpose, and the land provides for them in ways that modern society often overlooks. The very act of living off the land, of using everything it offers, is both practical and spiritual. For the peasants, the land isn't just a place to survive, it's a partner in their survival. They are part of a larger system, one that requires respect, reciprocity, and careful management. You've likely noticed, too, that while the hearth provides much-needed warmth, it also offers the most comfort during the long winter nights. It's not just the warmth of the fire that draws the peasants to its glow, it's the sense of community it fosters. The fire is a place where everyone comes together, where stories are shared, and where the world outside can momentarily be forgotten. In the flickering shadows, the peasants can laugh, cry, and reflect. The harshness of the winter doesn't seem as oppressive when they are gathered in the warmth of the hearth. The fire, in many ways, is their lifeline not just for warmth, but for their emotional survival as well. Interestingly, this communal gathering around the hearth is not just a social custom. Historians continue to explore the psychological importance of such gatherings. Some suggest that the act of coming together around a shared fire helped to foster a sense of safety and belonging, which was vital in a world where the threat of hunger, disease, and death was ever present. The communal aspect of the fire, in fact, might have been one of the key factors in helping medieval peasants to endure the psychological stress of winter. Without these shared moments of connection, the isolation and fear of the cold could easily have been overwhelming. But while the hearth may provide warmth for the body and the soul, the outside world is a much harsher place. The wind continues to howl, and the snow piles higher with each passing day. The peasants know that the real challenge of winter is not just staying warm, it's staying alive. The cold doesn't just creep into your bones, it creeps into the very fabric of your life. The longer the cold lingers, the more difficult it becomes to maintain any semblance of normalcy. The simple act of gathering firewood becomes a struggle. The task of keeping the hearth burning becomes increasingly taxing, and the burden of managing limited resources weighs heavily on everyone. Yet, despite all of this, the peasants persevere. The work doesn't stop just because winter has arrived. You'll see peasants in the field even on the coldest days, cutting more wood, hunting game, or tending to the animals. Some of the bravest may even venture to market, making sure their supplies are topped off, though these trips are fraught with danger. The roads are slick with ice, the risk of frostbite looms over every step, and the cold air bites at their skin with every breath they take. But they press on, knowing that survival requires a constant effort. Their lives are defined by this relentless drive, this continual push to stay ahead of the cold. There is no time to rest for long, no time to grow complacent. A quirky little fact you might not have expected. During these long, frozen months, it's not uncommon for peasants to build makeshift shelters in the woods or fields, temporary structures that serve as refuges from the biting cold when firewood or food runs low. These shelters might be nothing more than a few branches and a blanket of snow, but in a pinch, they can provide enough protection to keep someone alive for a short time. It's a harsh existence, but it's one that speaks to the ingenuity and resilience of the people. This world, as you observe it, is nothing like the warmth and ease of modern living, but in its own way, it is beautiful. The way the peasants have adapted to the cold, the way they use every scrap of the land to survive, and the way they come together in the face of adversity, it's a testament to human resilience. As the winter winds howl outside and the fire crackles within, you realize that survival is not just about building walls and roofs. It's about building community, about finding warmth not just from the fire, but from each other. The frost is unrelenting as you sit by the fire, the crackling warmth of the hearth drawing you deeper into the atmosphere of this medieval winter. The outside world is a desolate landscape, swallowed up by snowdrifts and howling winds. Yet here, inside this humble home, there is a quiet kind of life that continues to unfold despite the cold. In the flickering light, you begin to notice the small details, the worn wooden beams that have supported this home for years, the carefully placed stones that form the foundation, and the simple furnishings that provide comfort, however meager, to the family within. You realize just how much these homes are built around the notion of constant adaptation. There's nothing stagnant about them. Each year the peasants make improvements, sometimes out of necessity, sometimes out of ingenuity. The survival instinct, it seems, is as much about adaptation as it is about endurance. Every season they learn something new about how to survive the cold. The roofs are repaired, the walls patched, the wood replaced. Nothing is ever truly finished, because the challenge of winter is never over. One aspect of these homes that you'll notice as you gaze around the room is how the space is divided. Despite the cold and the cramped quarters, the peasants have learned to maximize every inch of space. The home is not just a shelter from the elements. It's a multi-purpose area where food is prepared, clothes are mended, and even animals are kept to conserve warmth. The central hearth provides the warmth needed for cooking and for heating water, but it also serves as a communal space where family members, neighbors, and even visiting travelers gather for warmth, companionship, and shared stories. It's an open, shared space, but one that is also defined by necessity. Each individual has their own small area within the home. You'll find places where children sleep, nestled in the corner near the hearth, under thick woolen blankets. Adults sleep in similarly close quarters, often sharing beds to conserve heat. The entire family might sleep in a pile of blankets, all huddled together for warmth. There's no privacy, no personal space in the way we understand it today, but the closeness of the people within these walls is a kind of comfort in itself. The warmth of human connection keeps the cold at bay in more ways than one. Food, too, becomes a shared responsibility. Meals are simple and often meager stew made from whatever vegetables and meats are available, bread, and whatever else they can gather. Peasants are skilled at making do with what little they have. Meat may be salted and preserved, while root vegetables are stored in cellars, ensuring they last through the worst of the winter. Grain is carefully rationed, and bread is baked as needed, always with an eye on the dwindling stores. The smell of cooking food mingles with the scent of burning wood, creating an oddly comforting atmosphere despite the scarcity of resources. Everyone has a part to play in ensuring that the meals are prepared, even the children, who learn from an early age how to fetch water, gather kindling, or help with other small chores. One thing that stands out in these homes, as you sit in the warmth of the firelight, is the intricate layering of survival. The peasants' approach to winter isn't just about building a shelter or making food. It's about building a system that supports life on multiple levels. It's a system of cooperation, resourcefulness, and above all, survival. Each element plays a role, from the placement of the home, to the gathering of firewood, to the way food is stored and rationed. The peasants live in a delicate balance, constantly adjusting and adapting, making sure that everything works in harmony to keep them alive. It's also fascinating to consider how the materials they use affect the warmth of their homes. For instance, the wooden beams and the mud walls of the house aren't just structural, they're thermal regulators. They help trap heat inside the house. And over time, The warmth from the fire in the hearth slowly seeps into the walls and beams, making the home more comfortable. The design is both practical and innovative, with everything working together to keep the temperature as stable as possible. What might seem like simple materials to us, wood, mud, straw are in fact carefully selected and placed for their insulating properties. The peasants have an intimate understanding of their environment and how best to use the resources around them. You might find it surprising, but scholars have long debated the degree to which medieval peasants understood these natural systems. Some argue that they had an intuitive knowledge of insulation and thermal regulation, passed down through generations, while others maintain that much of this knowledge was learned through trial and error, with the peasants adapting to what worked best over time. It's likely that both of these factors played a role, but what's clear is that the peasants knew exactly what they needed to do to survive the winter, and they did it with remarkable efficiency. Perhaps one of the most interesting aspects of these homes is the way they reflect the rhythms of the seasons. The changes in temperature, the lengthening and shortening of the days, all of these factors influence life within the house. In the winter, when the cold is most intense, the peasants huddle together near the fire, sharing warmth and comfort. As spring approaches, they'll begin to venture outside more frequently, repairing the house, gathering food, and preparing for the coming season. The home in this sense becomes a living thing, constantly adapting to the needs of the people inside and the demands of the world outside. But for now, in the dead of winter, the focus is on survival. Every decision, every task, is centered on keeping the cold at bay. And in the flickering light of the hearth, you realize just how much of life is about endurance, about making it through the tough times. The peasant's home is more than just a shelter, it's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reflection of the way people can adapt to even the harshest of conditions. As you sit there, warmed by the fire, you begin to appreciate the simplicity of it all. The fire, the thatch, the mud, it's a world that seems far removed from the comforts we know today. But it's also a world that speaks to something deep inside us, something primal. The need for warmth, for safety, for survival. It's a universal human experience, one that transcends time and place. The peasants, in their quiet resilience, have shown you just how far we've come, and yet in many ways, how much we remain the same. The fire burns steadily in the hearth, its flickering light casting long, soft shadows on the walls of the home. Outside, the world remains frozen, an endless sea of white and ice. The peasants huddle together inside, their lives centered around the heat that comes from this one central fire. There's no easy way to avoid the cold during these months, no magic spell to ward off the frost. The harsh winds of winter blow unrelenting against the thatched roofs, sending a chill through the timber walls. But within these homes, despite the harshest of elements outside, there is warmth, a warmth that is fought for every day. One of the essential tasks that consume the peasants' time in the winter is firewood. A steady supply of firewood is the lifeblood of survival. Without it, warmth disappears, and the cold will creep into every corner of the house. The peasants know that firewood isn't just about warmth, it's about life. The careful selection of wood, the cutting, and the stacking each of these tasks must be done with precision. The firewood must be kept dry, for wet wood won't burn well, and a damp fire will only add to the chill. The effort to gather, chop, and store wood for the winter is immense. In the forests, the peasants work as a community, felling trees and collecting wood, ensuring that there will be enough to keep the fire burning. Each piece of firewood is precious. You see, it's not just about gathering logs. The peasants carefully chop the wood to ensure it burns evenly and slowly. They understand that the fire must burn long enough to provide warmth for hours, not just a quick blaze that dies out within minutes. And so, every log is measured and stacked with purpose. The effort to gather the wood is a testament to how deeply the peasants respect their resources. There's no waste. Every piece of the tree has a function, whether it's for building, for warmth, or even for cooking. They understand that to survive the winter, They must use what the forest provides in the most efficient way possible. One aspect that becomes particularly important in these colder months is the ability to ration resources. This is particularly true for firewood. When you watch the peasants work, you begin to see the intricate calculations they make with each task. For example, they know exactly how much firewood will be needed to heat the home for the day, and how much must be saved for the long nights. Every action is deliberate and purposeful. Rationing isn't just about managing firewood. It's about managing everything they have: food, warmth, and even their energy. It's also interesting to think about the roles firewood and the fire itself played in the social fabric of peasant life. The hearth, of course, was the center of the home, but it also played a larger role in the community. In many villages, the fire wasn't just a private matter, it was communal. Families would sometimes share firewood and hearth space, especially during particularly harsh winters. This practice of communal living allowed families to pool their resources, ensuring that no one was left without heat or food. The hearth was a place not only for warmth but for social interaction, for passing the time during the long, dark nights. It was a shared experience, and as the fire flickered, so too did the bonds between families strengthen. Interestingly, the fire's role went beyond just warmth and light. It also had an almost mystical quality in the lives of medieval peasants. The hearth was more than just a functional feature of the home, it was a symbol of life itself. In many cultures, the hearth was considered a sacred space, a place of protection. The fire, after all, was one of the few elements that could fight back against the relentless cold. It was also a source of food, providing heat for cooking and preserving meat. In fact, historians still debate whether the hearth was regarded as a spiritual center of the home. Some argue that the warmth of the hearth was seen as a metaphor for the life force of the family, while others claim that the hearth was simply a practical necessity, without any deeper symbolic meaning. Regardless of the interpretation, the importance of the hearth cannot be overstated. Beyond the hearth, another source of warmth was the clothing worn by the peasants. Clothing, too, was a matter of survival. You might notice the thick woolen garments that wrapped the peasants' bodies: cloaks, tunics, and stockings made from the fleece of sheep, carefully spun into yarn and woven into fabric. These clothes, while simple, were incredibly effective at trapping heat. They were designed to be worn in layers, each layer providing an additional barrier against the cold. The peasants wore these clothes not just for warmth, but to protect themselves from the elements as they worked outside. Every garment had a purpose, and every stitch was a testament to the resourcefulness of the people who made them. The shoes the peasants wore were equally important. Simple leather boots, often lined with wool or fur, kept their feet warm as they trudged through the snow. These shoes were designed to be practical, made to withstand the harsh conditions of the winter landscape. You can imagine the squeak of boots in the snow as the peasants trudge back and forth, gathering firewood or checking on their animals. There's something about the sound of footsteps in the snow that speaks to the solitude of winter, but also to the resilience of the people who endure it. The peasants, with their thick coats and sturdy boots, are well equipped for the cold, but they also understand that no matter how well prepared they are, nature will always have the upper hand. The cold will continue to come, season after season, and the peasants must always be ready. This reliance on clothing and shelter is not just about survival, it's about making the best of a harsh reality. The peasants have learned, over generations, how to adapt to the brutal winters. They understand their environment and work with it, not against it. The clothes they wear, the homes they build, the fire they maintain, all of these are carefully designed to ensure they make it through the cold. It's a constant cycle of adaptation, of learning to live with the seasons rather than fight them. And through it all, the fire continues to burn, providing warmth, light, and life. As the wind howls outside and the snow falls in thick, swirling drifts, you can't help but feel a deep appreciation for the simple, yet profound ways in which these peasants have learned to survive. It's not just about building walls or chopping wood, it's about community, resourcefulness, and an unbreakable spirit. Even in the deepest, darkest days of winter, there is warmth to be found in the bonds between people and the homes they've built. In the end, it's not the structure that keeps them alive, but the strength of their connections and the constant effort to stay one step ahead of the cold. The night is long, but the warmth from the fire keeps the chill at bay. Outside, the world is buried under a blanket of snow, the ground solid with ice, the trees stripped bare, and the wind howling relentlessly. Inside the house, the peasants are safe, protected by the humble shelter they've built with their own hands. But the battle is far from over. The cold isn't just a passing inconvenience. It's a presence that must be reckoned with, an invisible force that tests their endurance with each passing day. And while the fire provides warmth, there are many other ways in which the peasants fight to maintain comfort in their lives. You notice the thick woolen blankets piled high on the beds. Each family member is wrapped in layers of cloth, their bodies huddled together for warmth. The practice of sleeping in close proximity isn't just about convenience, it's survival. The more bodies there are in one place, the more heat is shared. You can feel the body heat of those around you, comforting, even as the wind outside bites at the edges of the roof. The blankets, too, are carefully crafted, made from wool sheared from sheep, spun and woven into thick, insulating cloth. They are the product of long hours of work, but they're invaluable in keeping the cold at bay. A simple, yet effective, layer of protection. The peasant's bed isn't just for sleeping, though it's a place for gathering, resting, and even working. During the coldest months, there are long stretches of time when nothing much can be done outside. The earth is frozen, and the work that must be done is limited to what can be handled indoors. This is when the true value of these small homes becomes clear. They are not just shelters from the cold, but hubs of activity and life. It's where children are taught, where tools are repaired, where clothes are mended, and where stories are shared. These humble spaces, though cramped and unadorned, are vital to the survival of the community. You might not think much of the hearth smoke or the smell of damp wool, but for the peasants, these things are comforting. The air is thick with the scent of burning wood and the subtle tang of animal hides drying by the fire. The crackle of the fire is a constant companion, providing both warmth and light in the long, dark evenings. Without this light, the night would feel endless. The fire also provides a measure of safety. There's comfort in knowing that the hearth will keep the house warm, and that it serves as a barrier between the freezing cold outside and the warmth within. The fire also symbolizes something deeper. It's a symbol of life. As long as the fire burns, so too does the hope of survival. But it isn't just the fire that keeps the home habitable during the winter months. There's the constant effort to keep the shelter in good repair. The thatched roofs are vulnerable to the weight of the snow, which can easily accumulate, dampening the thatch and increasing the risk of collapse. The peasants are always vigilant, checking the roof and walls for weaknesses. It's a constant cycle of maintenance that never ends. Every time the wind howls or the snow begins to fall again, there's an underlying sense of urgency. The peasants know that if they don't stay ahead of the storm, their homes could be compromised. In some regions, villagers work together to ensure that everyone's roof is secure. This shared responsibility strengthens the bonds between neighbors and keeps everyone safe. The roof may be one of the most vulnerable parts of the home, but it's also the most important. The foundation, though, is equally crucial. Without a solid base, the house could shift and become unstable, especially when the ground beneath it freezes. The peasants take care to place their homes on ground that won't easily flood or sink when the weather turns. The materials they use are carefully chosen for their durability and ability to withstand the harsh conditions. The floors are often made from stone or clay, both of which offer some protection from the cold, preventing the freezing ground from seeping into the house. You can feel the coolness of the earth beneath your feet as you walk around the home, but the stone or clay acts as a shield, keeping the warmth inside the house. This is yet another way in which the peasants have adapted to their environment by making sure the shelter isn't just a barrier against the wind, but also a sturdy platform that can stand the test of winter's fury. Scholars still argue over the exact methods used to insulate homes in different regions during medieval times. While many agree that the basic principles were the same, the use of mud, thatch, and stone, there are still debates over how extensively different cultures used animal products for insulation. Some historians point to the widespread use of animal hides in northern regions as a vital aspect of medieval shelter, while others argue that this was more of a regional practice that depended on the availability of materials. Regardless of the specifics, what's clear is that the peasants knew exactly what materials to use and how to combine them to create a home that could withstand the cold. There was no room for error, and every decision mattered. It's also worth noting the role that animals played in the winter survival of peasants. Many peasant homes, especially in colder regions, were built with an area for livestock close to the family's living space. This wasn't just a matter of convenience, it was a strategic decision to conserve warmth. The animals, often kept in a small stable or pen adjacent to the home, provided both a source of food and additional warmth. The heat from the animals' bodies would seep into the house, helping to keep the interior slightly warmer. It's a clever use of available resources, showing how the peasants had learned to make every aspect of their environment work for them. This reliance on animals also extended to their dung, which was sometimes used as a form of insulation in the walls of the house. Animal dung mixed with straw or mud would be packed into the gaps between the logs, creating an additional barrier against the cold. It's a surprising but effective method, one that speaks to the resourcefulness and creativity of the peasants. While it might not sound particularly pleasant by modern standards, it was an essential part of the winter survival strategy. As the days go by, you realize that winter is not just a season for the peasants, it's a way of life. Every aspect of their existence is shaped by the cold, from the way they build their homes to the way they live their daily lives. Their homes are more than just shelters, they are carefully constructed systems designed to keep them safe and warm in the harshest conditions. And while the outside world may seem desolate and frozen, inside the home, the peasants have created a space that is both functional and alive with warmth. The fire crackles, the hearth glows, and despite the cold outside, life goes on. As the days lengthen and the nights grow colder, the rhythm of life within the peasant homes remains steady, centered around the simple, unyielding effort to stay warm. The wind outside continues to whip against the walls, but inside, there is a quiet strength in the space. You can hear the low murmur of voices, the clink of utensils on bowls, the occasional sound of wood being added to the fire. It's a kind of music, one that speaks of survival and community, a hum that keeps the cold at bay. Life within these homes is shaped by the necessity of managing limited resources. As the winter progresses, the peasants grow increasingly reliant on what they've stored: dried meats, salted fish, root vegetables, and grains. You see how carefully they measure their portions, stretching their stores to ensure they last until spring. Nothing is wasted. Even scraps of food are carefully preserved for later use. Bones from a stew might be saved for soup stock, while small pieces of bread are set aside to dry and later turn into crumbs for cooking. You notice how nothing, not even a single morsel, goes unused. Every part of the food they've gathered is put to good use, showing just how deeply ingrained the lesson of frugality is in their daily lives. The food is simple but nourishing, hearty enough to keep the body going through the bitter cold. The stews simmer slowly over the fire, their rich aroma filling the small space. You can hear the bubbling sound of the pot, and the smell of onions, root vegetables, and salted meat mixes with the scent of the firewood, creating an earthy, comforting atmosphere. The peasants sit together, sharing their meals, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the fire. It's a moment of togetherness in the midst of a cold and difficult season, a reminder that despite the hardships, there is always something to share. This shared meal is more than just a necessity, it's a social event. Around the hearth, the family gathers not just to eat, but to talk, to tell stories and to plan. The fire provides warmth, but it also brings them together in a way that nothing else can. It's a time for connection, for bonding, and for reassuring each other that, Despite the struggles of winter, they are not alone. In the stillness of the winter night, the warmth of this gathering is a constant reminder of the strength of community. You can see how the rhythm of daily life, even in the midst of winter, revolves around maintaining this delicate balance. The peasants know that each day is precious, each meal a step closer to spring. But it's not just about survival, it's also about maintaining hope. The long nights are broken up with small moments of joy, laughter, stories, and songs sung around the hearth. It's these small acts of connection that help keep the dark, cold nights from feeling endless. While warmth and sustenance are essential, there are other forms of comfort within these homes that are just as vital. You notice the small things, the carefully woven baskets holding dried herbs and flowers, the hand-carved wooden spoons, the simple clay pots used for cooking. These objects, while practical, also carry with them a sense of familiarity and comfort. They are part of the daily routine, part of the rhythm that keeps everything in motion. It's remarkable, really, how the simplest objects, things that might seem insignificant in other contexts, become the cornerstone of life during winter. Each piece, each gesture, plays a role in keeping the family warm, nourished, and together. In the winter months, these small, quiet comforts are what allow the peasants to endure. The blankets, the food, the warmth of the fire, these are the things that help them survive, but they also make life worth living. There's a deep understanding that, though the cold may be relentless and the nights may be long, the connections between people, family, neighbors, and the community at large are what truly sustain them. You can't help but admire this resilience, this quiet strength that permeates everything they do. They live with a kind of grace that comes from enduring hardship together, and their warmth doesn't just come from the fire, it comes from the bonds they share. It's also interesting to think about how this communal living, this sharing of warmth and resources, differs from what we know today. In the modern world, it's easy to forget that survival often depended on the collective effort of a community. We have heating systems, insulated walls, and modern conveniences that allow us to live in relative comfort, even during the harshest winters. But here, in the medieval village, warmth is something that must be earned, something that comes only through hard work, careful planning, and the willingness to share with those around you. The hearth is a symbol of this effort, a source of both physical and emotional warmth. But survival, as you've seen, isn't just about keeping the fire burning. It's also about finding ways to make the most of every resource available. The peasants know how to stretch their food, how to make their homes as warm as possible, and how to support one another through the darkest days of the year. And when the food supply grows scarce, when the firewood runs low, they find ways to make do. This ability to adapt, to stretch every resource, is what keeps them alive during these brutal winters. It's what allows them to endure, year after year, through the harshest conditions. And even though the cold winds continue to howl outside, even though the earth remains frozen and the nights seem to stretch on endlessly, there's a sense of quiet strength in the air. The peasants know that, no matter how harsh the winter may be, spring will come, the warmth will return, the snow will melt, and the cycle of life will begin again. They know this because they've lived it before, and they'll live it again. The fire will burn brighter, the hearth will glow with warmth, and the earth will come alive once more. In the meantime, the peasants continue to huddle together, finding warmth not just in the fire but in each other. As the cold wind howls outside, they hold their families close, working together to endure the winter. The challenges of survival are ever present, but they face them with a quiet dignity, knowing that no matter how harsh the cold may get, they are stronger when they face it together. The nights stretch on, each one colder than the last, as the endless rhythm of winter continues to envelop the world. The wind howls outside, but inside the peasant home, a strange stillness settles. You hear the soft crackling of the fire, the gentle whisper of the wind outside, and the occasional sound of feet shifting or the shifting of blankets. The warmth from the hearth is a constant presence, its flames dancing in the fire pit, but it doesn't just provide physical warmth. It offers a sense of comfort, of familiarity, of home, a reprieve from the relentless cold that hovers just beyond the walls. As the days pass, you notice how every small detail contributes to the survival of this household. There's no room for error, no space for excess. The peasants are careful, precise, always thinking ahead. Every scrap of food is accounted for, every piece of firewood has a purpose. You've seen how the family works together to maintain the fire, to prepare their meals, to take turns keeping the hearth fed with wood. It's not just about physical survival, it's about living in harmony with the resources they have, doing their best to balance their needs with the realities of the season. You can't help but wonder how these people manage to endure the harshness of the winter year after year. It's not just the homes they've built, the food they've stored, or the fire they maintain. It's something more, their deep understanding of how to live with the seasons, how to adapt, how to take what the land offers and make the most of it. The medieval peasants have developed a finely tuned relationship with their environment, a relationship built on observation, patience, and resilience. Take, for example, the way they store food. You've seen the root cellars, dug deep into the frozen earth, their cool interiors preserving vegetables, fruits, and grains for the long winter months. These cellars are simple but effective, the dirt and stone providing insulation, protecting the food from the frost outside. Inside these cellars, you can almost hear the quiet hum of life continuing, even as the world outside has grown still and frozen. The peasants know that their survival depends on having enough food to make it through the winter. They carefully store what they've harvested in the fall, ensuring that they won't run out of supplies before the spring thaw. In some ways, these cellars are like small vaults of hope. Each jar of preserves, each bag of grain, each root vegetable is a promise that they can survive until the earth wakes up again. The peasants also know that the heart of their survival isn't just about physical things, it's about community. And this winter, more than ever, it becomes clear that the bonds they share with their neighbors and families are the key to getting through these long months. In times of scarcity, the village works together. Firewood, food, and other necessities are shared, especially when the winter proves harder than usual. The importance of this cooperation cannot be overstated. A family may have more food than they need, but the firewood may be running low, and so they share with others. It's a cycle of give and take that ensures the survival of the entire community. In fact, as you watch the families gather around the hearth, it's impossible to ignore the subtle yet undeniable truth. Survival is a collective effort. Each household depends on the others, even if they don't always realize it. The small acts of kindness, the sharing of firewood, the exchange of food, all these moments build a sense of solidarity. It's a quiet community spirit, one that runs deeper than any individual hardship. Each fire, each shared meal, each helping hand strengthens the foundation of trust that holds the village together. The idea of individual survival takes a back seat to the idea of collective survival. The more you watch, the more you realize that the peasants' resilience isn't just about how they face the elements, it's about how they face them together. This sense of community is woven into every aspect of medieval life, but it is especially important during the winter months. You see, the winter can be isolating. People stay indoors, work slows down, and the days grow shorter and colder. But the hearth, with its fire and its warmth, draws people in, bringing them together to talk, to share, to laugh, and to plan. In this small, humble room, surrounded by thick walls of stone and mud, the peasants find a refuge not just from the cold, but from the isolation that the winter often brings. There is comfort in the shared experience, the knowledge that others are enduring the same struggle. This collective warmth, in both the literal and figurative sense, is what holds them together when the winter seems to stretch endlessly ahead. It's also interesting to think about the importance of this shared space in the context of survival. The home is not just a place of shelter, it's a place of exchange, of communication. When the fire burns low, someone is always there to stoke it, to bring in more firewood, to tend to the needs of the group. Every family member plays a role, and while it may seem like a simple task, the act of maintaining the fire is deeply symbolic of the way the peasants must tend to each other's needs. The work is constant, but it's shared, and in this way, the labor of survival becomes less of a burden and more of a cooperative effort. It's no wonder that many of the peasants' customs and traditions were centered around the hearth. Many of the most important moments in their lives were celebrated around the fire: weddings, births, harvests, and other milestones. The hearth wasn't just a source of heat, it was the center of their social lives. In this small space, surrounded by family and friends, the peasants could find comfort, even in the harshest of winters. The fire became more than just a source of warmth, it became a symbol of the heart of the family, a place where all things, from work to play to rest, converged. Historians still debate whether the communal nature of medieval life was as pronounced as we think. Some believe that the villages were more individualistic, with each family maintaining a sense of privacy and independence. Others argue that the communal nature of life was essential to survival, and that the bond between families during winter was stronger than any individual differences. One thing is certain, though. In these cold months, the shared experience of survival binds people together in ways that nothing else can. As the fire burns low and the night stretches on, you can feel the weight of winter pressing in on the walls of the home. But inside, there is a quiet warmth that comes not just from the fire, but from the shared experience of survival. The cold is an ever-present companion, but it is also a reminder of the strength of community and the resilience of those who endure it together. The long, cold nights stretch on, the days seeming to bleed together in the endless grip of winter. Yet even in the midst of this frigid monotony, there is a subtle, almost imperceptible shift. The light begins to return, if only slightly. The days lengthen ever so slightly, and with that small change comes a quiet sense of hope. The peasants, though weary from the relentless cycle of survival, feel it too. It's not the hope of immediate relief that is still far off, hidden somewhere in the distant promise of spring, but a quiet, deep-seated belief that the worst of the winter is nearing its end. And with that belief comes a renewed sense of purpose. The hearth continues to burn steadily, but now the fire is not just a means of survival, it is a symbol of endurance, a reminder of how far they've come. The snow still piles up outside, thick and heavy, but inside, the peasants gather more closely around the fire. The room feels warmer now, though the chill in the air is never truly gone. It's a small warmth, but enough to lift spirits. The firelight flickers, casting gentle shadows on the stone and timber walls, as if the home itself is alive with the energy of survival. You notice, too, that there is a subtle change in the way the peasants move and speak. The heavy burdens they carried throughout the harshest part of the winter seem a little lighter now. There is more laughter around the hearth, more stories told in the soft, flickering light. It's as though the fire itself has breathed new life into them. The rhythm of daily life is still dominated by the work of survival, gathering firewood, tending to the animals, rationing food, but now there's an added sense of anticipation. The peasants know the cold will not last forever, and they begin to make plans for the coming months. Soon, the first buds of spring will emerge, and with them, the promise of renewal. But even as the days begin to stretch longer, you're struck by the quiet tenacity of the peasants. There is no dramatic shift in their behavior. There's no sense of frantic energy. Instead, there's a quiet, steady hope, a knowing that the end of winter will come when it comes, and that until then, the work continues. The focus remains on the fire, the hearth, the warmth of the home, and the shared experience of enduring the cold. Each day that passes brings them closer to the time when the earth will thaw, when they can once again step outside and feel the warmth of the sun on their skin. But for now, the work must continue. The fire crackles and pops as another log is added to the flames. The peasants move efficiently now, their movements more fluid, their attention focused on the tasks at hand. The fire is replenished, The food is prepared, the blankets are adjusted. There is a sense of familiarity in the work, as though each task has become second nature. This is the rhythm of winter: work, gather, maintain, and survive. The cold may still be biting, but the resilience of the people has only grown stronger with each passing day. You can feel the community spirit growing in this small home. As the family works together, their bonds strengthen. They speak to one another with more ease now, exchanging stories and laughter. They share in the small joys of the day: an extra helping of food, a particularly warm fire, the return of the sun, even if only for a few extra minutes. The winter, while still holding its grip, feels just a little less oppressive, a little less consuming. In this small home, in this small village, the peasants have learned how to coexist with the cold, how to face it with patience and strength. The hearth continues to glow, and you notice how much the room has changed. The warmth is no longer just a physical sensation, it's an emotional one, too. The fire becomes a meeting point for the family, a symbol of the warmth they share, both literal and figurative. The fire has, in a sense, become a living, breathing thing, a force that sustains them, that gives them the energy to keep going. It is the lifeblood of their existence, the one thing that holds everything together. Without it, the cold would consume them, but with it, they find warmth, solace, and hope. As you sit by the fire, you realize just how much the fire represents the resilience of the people. It's not just the firewood they gather, the kindling they collect, or the logs they stack. It's the way the fire sustains their spirit. The hearth has become a place of shared energy, where the family gathers to find strength in each other's company, to share their experiences and struggles. The simple act of tending to the fire has taken on a deeper significance. It's not just about survival, it's about ensuring that the warmth, both physical and emotional, remains constant. The fire doesn't just give warmth, it brings life. The peasant homes, simple as they may be, are far from insignificant. They are not just shelters from the cold, they are sanctuaries that hold the lives and dreams of those who live within them. The careful crafting of the walls, the thatched roofs, the choice of materials, all of it is a testament to the peasants' understanding of their world and their ability to adapt to it. But it is the fire, the hearth, the warmth shared around it that truly makes the home a refuge. The seasons may shift, and the winds of winter may slowly give way to the promise of spring, but for now, the hearth remains the heart of the home. The fire continues to burn, steady and warm, a constant companion in the ever-changing dance with the cold. The peasants, too, continue to endure, holding on to the belief that winter will pass, and that life will return to the earth once again. As the fire crackles, you realize that, in many ways, this is the essence of life. A slow, steady struggle against the elements, a fight to maintain warmth, both physical and emotional, against the cold winds of the world. The arrival of the first signs of spring is a quiet affair, almost unnoticed in the bustle of daily life. The sun begins to shine a little longer each day, its rays weak but persistent. For the peasants, however, it is a monumental shift. After months of cold, of hardship, of endless days spent holed up inside, the promise of spring brings a surge of energy that can almost be felt in the air. The fire still burns steadily in the hearth, but now it seems less of a necessity and more of a comforting habit, something to keep the lingering chill at bay as the seasons slowly begin to change. The family, once huddled closely around the fire for warmth, now starts to stretch their legs a bit, moving about the house with renewed purpose. The work doesn't stop. There are still animals to care for, food to prepare, and repairs to make, but there's an underlying lightness to their movements, an awareness that the worst of the winter is finally over. The world outside is still cold, but the ground has started to soften, and the first signs of green poke through the snow. The promise of renewal is palpable. Life will begin again, slowly at first, but with a steady, unyielding march towards spring. It's remarkable how much the energy in the home changes with the first hints of warmer days. The air no longer feels quite so oppressive, and the windows, though still covered in layers of frost, begin to open more often, letting in the fresh, slightly warmer air. The peasants begin to step outside more, tending to the garden plots that were once buried under a thick blanket of snow. The snow itself, while still present in patches, begins to melt away in the sunlight, revealing the earth beneath. With the thaw comes a sense of renewal, not just in the land, but in the hearts of the people. The fear of winter's cold is slowly replaced with the hope of the new season to come. The food stores that have been carefully rationed over the long winter months are beginning to dwindle. The last of the preserved meats and dried vegetables are being eaten, and the family knows that the transition to spring will require them to find fresh food. The early spring harvest, though modest, will provide the first fresh greens of the year, small shoots of herbs, early vegetables, and perhaps a few wild fruits if they're lucky. The prospect of fresh food after months of eating only preserved or dried provisions brings a palpable sense of excitement. The peasants are accustomed to the cycle of the seasons, and while winter brings its hardships, it also makes the arrival of spring all the more rewarding. You can see the way the peasants shift their focus now. They begin to repair the roof that was battered by the snow, patching up the thatch and checking for any leaks. The walls, too, are inspected for cracks and wear, and the woodpile that has kept them warm throughout the cold months is replenished. While the house itself is a constant project maintained throughout the year, it's clear now that the repairs are made with a kind of optimism, a recognition that the long, harsh winter is behind them. The work is still important, still necessary, but there's a sense of relief in it. There's a knowing that they will make it to the other side. The hearth, still flickering with flames, becomes a symbol of the transition. It's no longer the center of everything, but it is still there, still present. The warmth of the fire, once the only protection against the cold, now serves as a comforting reminder of the family's endurance. The fire is still tended to, the wood still gathered, but the peasants no longer need to rely on it to survive. The shift is subtle, but unmistakable. The fire remains, as it always has, but it's no longer the all-important force it once was. Spring has arrived in its quiet way, and with it comes the promise of new beginnings. The family begins to prepare for the coming months with a renewed sense of energy. They check the livestock, ensuring they have enough feed to last until the grass begins to grow. The animals, too, seem to feel the change in the air. They become more active, moving with greater energy and eagerness as the days stretch out. The peasants know that spring is a time for new life, for planting, for working the land. There is no time to waste. The land must be tended to, the crops must be planted, and the work of preparing for the warmer months must begin. And yet, even as the seasons change, there is a lingering appreciation for the winter that has passed. The hardship, the struggle to stay warm, the constant work of maintaining the shelter and gathering food, these things have shaped the peasants' lives in profound ways. They know that without the challenge of winter, the rewards of spring would feel much less significant. There is no sense of bitterness about the cold months. Rather, there's a quiet respect for the way winter forces them to come together, to work harder, to appreciate the small comforts that life offers. The warmth of the hearth, the food they've carefully preserved, and the strength of their community are what allowed them to survive the harsh winter. Without these things, survival would have been impossible. As you watch the family go about their work, you're reminded that the coldest winters bring about the greatest tests of resilience. The peasants, in their humble homes, have faced these tests year after year, adapting, surviving, and thriving in ways that many of us can only imagine. The fire, the food, the shelter, all of it is part of a delicate system that holds everything together. And as spring begins to peek over the horizon, you realize that this cycle of survival is more than just a fight against the elements. It's a fight for life itself, for the renewal of the land and the community. The warmth of the hearth, once a constant necessity, now feels like a quiet reminder of everything the peasants have endured. Spring will come, and with it, new life. But the memory of the winter, of the work, the sacrifices, and the shared experiences of surviving together will always remain. The peasants have learned to face the cold with strength, to endure the hardships with patience, and to embrace the warmth of community when the world outside feels frozen. And as the fire continues to burn, they look toward the future, knowing that the cycle will continue. As the first signs of spring appear, the world outside seems to breathe a sigh of relief. The once impenetrable snow is now beginning to recede, giving way to patches of brown earth, still cold but yearning for warmth. The peasants, however, know that the journey is far from over. While the winds may be gentler and the sun's rays a little stronger, there is still much work to be done before the true thaw arrives. The family members, though lighter in step, remain vigilant, tending to the animals, patching roofs, and preparing the soil for planting. The pace of life picks up now faster, more purposeful, but there is a quiet awareness that spring, like everything else, requires patience. The fire, which once commanded constant attention, now serves as a secondary source of warmth. While it still burns in the hearth, it is no longer the ever-present need that it once was. The wood is stacked in smaller piles, carefully rationed for the few cold mornings that still arrive. The hearth, which has been the focal point of the home for so many months, becomes more of a backdrop to the rest of the daily activities. The peasants work with renewed energy, their hands busy with tasks that signal the end of winter. The fire's glow flickers less often in the background of the home's lively atmosphere, but it remains there as a steady, comforting presence. The fire now represents the passing of the hardest months and the dawn of a more hopeful season. The work of survival has shifted. The focus is no longer solely on enduring the cold. Now, it's about readiness, about taking what little the land offers in early spring and ensuring it will sustain them through the coming months. The peasants gather early-season greens, wild herbs, dandelions, and the first tender shoots of vegetables that survived the winter freeze. These early spring foods are a gift, small but significant. They are fresh, alive with the promise of growth, and they serve as a reminder of what is yet to come. You can see how the change in the seasons has lifted the spirits of the family. The younger children who had spent so many months indoors now run outside to explore the thawing world. Their laughter echoes through the village, a welcome sound after the quiet isolation of winter. The adults, too, seem to move with a renewed sense of purpose. There's a rhythm to the work now, a pattern that feels more hopeful. As they work the soil, repairing fences, sowing seeds, and tending to the animals, there is a collective anticipation that pulses through the community. There's a quiet optimism that takes over, even as the peasants understand that the work has only just begun. Spring brings its own challenges, just as winter did. The unpredictability of the weather remains a constant concern, and there are still risks to contend with frosts that may harm the tender shoots of new crops, sudden storms that could wash away the work of planting. But there is something invigorating about the possibility of renewal. The peasants have seen this cycle before. They know that after the coldest winter, the earth will always thaw. The first buds will sprout, the first flowers will bloom, and life will continue its cycle of rebirth. For the peasants, spring isn't just about the change of seasons. It's a time for reflection, for looking back at the winter that has passed and remembering how far they've come. The fire that burned so brightly in the hearth now feels like a symbol of all they've endured. The warmth, the shelter, the community, their lives, are a testament to the resilience that allowed them to survive the harshest of winters. And as the fire burns less frequently and the work of the coming season begins, there's a sense of quiet pride in their hearts. They have made it through the coldest months. The hardest days are behind them, and with each passing day, spring makes its presence known more clearly. But this moment of relief is fleeting. The peasants know that spring, while it brings new life, also brings new work. The fields must be tilled, the seeds must be sown, and the animals must be cared for. As the earth softens and the days grow longer, the pace of life quickens. The work, though still demanding, is less about survival and more about thriving. For the first time in months, the peasants have the luxury of thinking beyond the immediate need for warmth and sustenance. There's time now to think about what the future will bring, the harvest that will feed them, the plants that will flourish, and the animals that will grow. You might notice, as you watch the peasants at work, how much their lives revolve around the rhythms of the earth. Every season has its own cycle, its own set of tasks. Winter is about endurance, about surviving the elements. Spring is about planting, nurturing, and watching as the world comes to life again. The peasants are attuned to these cycles, living in harmony with the seasons. They understand that survival doesn't just depend on shelter or food, it depends on a deep connection to the land and an understanding of the natural world. Historians still debate the role of agriculture in medieval peasant life. Some argue that peasants were more dependent on subsistence farming and hunting, while others contend that trade played a larger role in the survival of these communities. What is clear, however, is that the connection to the land was crucial. The peasants' lives were shaped by the earth, and the earth's cycles were as much a part of their survival as the homes they built and the fires they maintained. As the last of the snow melts away, the village seems to come alive. The simple homes, once surrounded by a vast expanse of white, now sit nestled in the warming earth, their roofs beginning to shed the last remnants of ice. The fire, which was once a constant companion, now feels like a distant memory. It is no longer a lifeline, it is merely a part of the past. The present is filled with the promise of new growth, new life, and new beginnings. And with that promise comes a deep, quiet gratitude. The peasants have endured, they have survived, and now, as the warmth of the sun begins to touch the earth, they look toward the future with a quiet hope. The work of survival never ends, but the arrival of spring is a reminder that, despite the harshest of winters, life always finds a way to return. The peasants know this truth better than anyone. They have built their homes to withstand the cold, to protect themselves from the elements, and to endure the long nights. And now, as the days grow warmer, they can rest in the knowledge that the cycle will continue, that life will renew itself, and that the warmth of the sun will always follow the coldest of winters. With spring now truly upon the village, the shift from winter's grip to the gentle embrace of warmer days begins to feel real. The air carries the faint scent of damp earth, and though the ground is still soft and saturated from the thaw, there is an undeniable sense of movement, of life pushing back against the cold. The peasants are already busy. It's not the frenetic rush of winter preparation, but a different kind of energy, one that carries with it the hope of abundance and a future harvest. The hard work of survival has morphed into the work of cultivation and growth, and the land that seemed so lifeless just a few weeks ago now hums with the promise of renewal. You see the peasants working in the fields now, planting seeds with steady hands. The earth, still cool beneath their feet, seems to come alive under their touch. They move in rhythm with the seasons, each family tending to their plots, sowing the seeds that will one day yield the food that will carry them through the next cycle. The once dead soil, now softened and warm, is a vast contrast to the frozen ground of winter. The peasants know the risks. They've faced famine before, and though they trust in the land, they also understand that the weather can be unpredictable. A late frost could damage tender crops, or a sudden storm could wash away all their hard work. But still, they plant. Still, they hope. As you watch them, it's hard not to be struck by the quiet faith in their movements. The peasants' lives are shaped by patience. They plant now, knowing they may not see the fruits of their labor for months. They water, they weed, and they tend to the crops, but there's an underlying recognition that much of the outcome is out of their hands. The land, like the weather, is unpredictable, and yet, despite the uncertainty, they continue. The rhythm of their work is steady and unwavering, as if it were a dance that's been passed down from generation to generation, a dance that is both a struggle and a joy. It's this balance between struggle and joy that defines their lives. The work in the fields is hard, but it's also incredibly rewarding. As the peasants work, their faces softening with the satisfaction of a job well done, you can see that the connection they share with the land is not just one of survival. It's a deeper bond, one that reflects their intimate understanding of the natural world and their place within it. The earth is not something to be feared or conquered, it's something to be worked with, to be nurtured and respected. The joy of spring isn't just about the growing crops, though. It's about the return of warmth, the first burst of colour as flowers bloom, and the sounds of birds returning to the trees. The village seems to hum with this quiet celebration of life's return. You hear the laughter of children who have spent so many long months indoors, now playing outside in the newly thawed earth. Their excitement is infectious as they run freely, chasing each other, exploring the growing world around them. The sound of their joy adds a lightness to the air, a contrast to the heavy silence that once hung over the village during the long winter nights. And yet, even in the midst of this hopeful change, the peasants remain grounded. They know better than anyone that the arrival of spring is not a guarantee of an easy future. There is still work to be done, more seeds to be sown, more crops to tend to, more animals to care for. The seasons, after all, are cyclical, and what is planted today must be tended tomorrow. But there is a quiet optimism now. It's not a loud, triumphant hope, but rather a soft, steady belief that spring will bring what they need. The cycles of nature are as much a part of their lives as the cycles of the fire and the food they eat. They've learned to trust these cycles, even as they know that hardship will come again. In the homes, the fire continues to burn, though its significance has changed. It's no longer the life-sustaining warmth of winter, but rather a comforting presence, one that represents the endurance and strength of the family through the harsh months. The hearth still provides heat, but it is no longer the heart of the household. The shift to spring means that the family can now gather outside, working together in the fields or sharing meals in the warmth of the sunlight. The warmth of the hearth has been replaced by the warmth of the earth, and for the first time in many months, the family can truly feel the embrace of the season. The arrival of spring isn't just about a physical shift, it's a mental and emotional transformation as well. The peasants, though exhausted from the work they've done to prepare for this moment, now breathe easier. The weight of the cold has lifted, and with it, a weight from their shoulders. The constant vigilance required by winter, the never-ending task of keeping the fire stoked, the food stocked, the walls secure has eased. For now, there's time to breathe, to rest, to look ahead with cautious optimism. The land has given them the gift of spring, and they will cherish it, knowing full well that the cycle will begin again. It's incredible to think about how much these people have endured to reach this moment. The long, cold winter months seemed endless, each day a struggle to stay warm, to stay fed, to stay alive. But now, with the light of spring pouring over the fields, you realize that the true strength of the peasants was never in their homes or their tools. It was in their ability to endure, to continue in the face of hardship, to adapt to the changing seasons and find a way to survive. It's their resilience, both physical and emotional, that has carried them through. You can almost see the shift in the village as the warmth of spring begins to touch the earth. The homes, once isolated and insulated from the cold, now open up to the land. The doors are opened wide. The smoke from the fire rises in the soft breeze, and the scent of freshly ploughed earth fills the air. The peasants work together, side by side, moving from house to field to barn with purpose. There is no rush, no panic. There is only steady, consistent work. And that, in the end, is what has always sustained them. A quiet, unyielding determination to see the work through to the end. Historians often point to the resilience of medieval peasants as one of the defining characteristics of their lives. There were few luxuries, no easy answers, no guarantee that the next season would bring abundance. And yet, time and time again, the peasants endured. They built homes that could withstand the harshest winters. They planted crops and cared for animals. And through it all, they remained steadfast in their belief that the cycle of the seasons would continue, bringing life with each passing year. Now, as spring takes hold, you can see it in their eyes, the quiet satisfaction of knowing they've made it through the hardest part, and the unspoken understanding that, while the work will continue, they are ready for whatever the next season brings. The village is alive with the unmistakable hum of spring. Birds have returned to the trees, their songs a delicate melody woven into the fabric of the day. The earth, once hardened and frozen, has softened, releasing the scent of fresh growth into the air. Flowers, small, delicate, and vibrant, begin to push through the soil, their petals opening to greet the first real warmth of the Sunday. It's a time of transformation, and everywhere you look, there are signs of life returning. The peasants, though tired from the work they've already put in, have begun to relax into the rhythm of spring. The pressure of winter's bite, of constantly guarding against the cold, has lifted, and for the first time in months, there is space to breathe, to take in the gentle warmth that now fills the air. The fire in the hearth still burns, but it is no longer the central force it once was. Instead, it's become a quiet companion, a reminder of the months that have passed. There is a sense of balance returning to the home, just as the land outside slowly returns to life. In the fields, the peasants work together, moving with purpose. The soil, once frozen and inaccessible, now yields to the steady hands of those who know it best. There's a harmony in their movements, a fluid rhythm that speaks of years spent working the land. The early crops are planted: potatoes, onions, carrots, and peas, and though the growth is slow, it's steady. Each seed that is placed in the soil is a promise for the future, a quiet act of faith in the seasons. They know the risks frost may still strike, storms may wash away their work, but there is no hesitation. The land, after all, has always returned, and so the peasants, undeterred, keep planting, keep tending. You can see the children too, out in the fields, learning the ways of the land from their elders. They have spent much of the winter inside, bundled up near the fire, but now they move freely in the warmth of the sun, helping with small tasks. They pick up bundles of sticks, gather stones, and even help water the crops. Their faces, once pale and drawn from the long winter, are now flushed with the life that spring brings. The smiles they wear are full of the joy of freedom, of returning to the earth, of returning to the rhythm of the seasons. It's striking how much the seasons shape these people's lives. The peasants are not merely surviving, they are part of a vast cycle that has been turning long before them and will continue long after. The work of survival is never ending, but the work is tied to something deeper. It's tied to the very pulse of the earth, the rise and fall of the sun, the warmth that slowly returns each year, bringing new life. The peasants know that the earth doesn't owe them anything. They know that survival requires patience, attention, and respect, and so they work, not as masters of the land, but as humble partners in its ongoing cycle. While the work of spring is heavy, there's a certain lightness in the air now. The peasants, once focused solely on staying warm, now shift their attention to growth. The fields that were once bare and desolate are now teeming with the potential for harvest. It's a beautiful, slow process, one that requires careful tending but promises abundance. The labor is still difficult, but it is a labor of hope, a labor of renewal. As the season progresses, the days grow longer, and the warmth of the sun lingers a little longer each evening. The fire, once essential for survival, now serves as a comforting ritual. The hearth still crackles with warmth, but the temperature in the room is no longer dictated by the fire alone. It's the earth now, the sun, the life that pulses beneath the soil, that shapes the atmosphere. And though there's still work to be done, the peasants can take a moment to sit, to rest, to listen to the sounds of the village coming alive. There's a quiet, almost imperceptible shift that happens now. The urgency of winter is gone, replaced by the steady, patient work of spring. The peasants understand that the cycle of seasons is a delicate thing. They know that spring doesn't guarantee summer, and summer doesn't guarantee fall, but they have faith in the land and in the work they do. They've been through enough winters to know that, after the coldest months, warmth will return. There's an almost sacred rhythm to it. They don't rush through spring. They understand that spring has its own pace, its own time, and that the earth must be allowed to find its own way. You can feel the presence of this rhythm in the village now. It's in the laughter of the children, the quiet hum of the workers, the gentle breeze that ruffles the leaves on the trees. It's a rhythm that's been passed down through generations, one that will continue long after these peasants have gone. The world turns, and the seasons follow, each bringing its own challenges and gifts. But what remains constant is the effort to live, to work, to thrive. The fire may no longer be the focus, but its presence still lingers, just as the memory of winter's cold lingers in the hearts of the people. They know that the earth gives, but it also demands. And with each season, they meet it with the same quiet strength that has carried them through every winter. Historians often look to the resilience of medieval peasants as a model of endurance. The hardships they faced were immense, yet they continued. The land, with all its unpredictability, was both their provider and their adversary. But in the end, it was their relationship to the land, their deep understanding of its rhythms, that allowed them to survive. And now, as spring unfurls its warmth across the land, you can't help but see the beauty in the simplicity of their lives. The quiet joy of a successful planting, the shared laughter of a family reunited with the earth. It's a reminder that survival is not just about enduring. It's about living, about adapting, about continuing the dance with the seasons, no matter how hard it may be. As the sun sets behind the hills, casting a soft, golden glow over the village, the fire still burns in the hearth. The day may be done, but the work of survival is ongoing. The peasants rest for now, but tomorrow they will wake and return to the fields, to the animals, to the rhythm of life that is both gentle and demanding. And so, the cycle continues steady, unyielding, and alive. As the days grow even longer, the world outside seems to settle into a predictable rhythm. The land, once desolate and cold, now buzzes with life. The first flowers have bloomed, and the trees are beginning to bud, their branches full of promise. The peasants, who once huddled together by the fire to stay warm through long nights, now find themselves outdoors more often than not. There is work to be done, of course. The earth must be tended to, the animals cared for, and the homes repaired before the heat of summer fully arrives. But with each passing day, the heaviness of winter seems further away. The weight of survival, though ever present, is lightened by the knowledge that they are moving toward a time of plenty. You notice how much more lively the village has become. The laughter of children fills the air once again, their voices ringing out in the warm breeze as they chase each other across the open fields. The adults, too, seem to move with more energy, as though the thaw has brought a lightness to their spirits. The work remains constant, but it's now a different kind of labor, one that comes with the anticipation of reward. The planting season is well underway, and the peasants move with purpose as they sow their seeds and tend to the crops that will grow tall over the coming months. The fire, though still used at night, now serves more as a symbol of what has passed, rather than a necessity for survival. As you walk through the village, you see the peasants working side by side, each focused on their own tasks, but all connected by a shared purpose. There is no rush, no sense of desperation. Instead, there is an unspoken understanding between them, a recognition that the land they rely on must be nurtured. The work is slow and steady, measured by the rhythm of the seasons. The earth, having warmed enough to allow planting, is now being prepared for what comes next. The peasants are working together in ways that reflect their deep bond to the land and to one another. The isolation of winter, though still fresh in their memories, has given way to the quiet camaraderie of spring. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and growing things. You can almost feel the land breathing with the peasants, as if it too is coming back to life. Every shovel of soil, every seed placed in the ground, carries the promise of the future. The peasants, in their simple but steady ways, continue to shape the world around them. They don't rush through it, they simply work with it, adapting to the seasons as they come. And in this quiet, deliberate work, they continue to survive, to thrive. The joy of spring is not in the flash of sudden change, but in the steady, persistent arrival of life. You watch as the peasants water their crops, their hands moving with practiced care, ensuring that each plant has what it needs to grow. There is a connection here, not just between the peasants and the land, but between the peasants themselves. They are bound together by the work they do, by the seasons they endure, and by the shared understanding that survival is a constant, collective effort. No one does this alone. As you stand among them, watching the crops begin to take root, you're struck by how much the peasants have learned to live with the land. They have adapted to its rhythms, to its cycles of growth and dormancy, and in doing so, they have learned to find peace in the knowledge that the land will provide, as long as they tend to it with care. Their homes, simple as they are expressions of this deep connection to the land crafted from wood and mud, built with a knowledge of what will last through the seasons, just as their farming practices are guided by what has worked for generations. The land, in return, provides them with sustenance, with shelter, and with the promise of life renewed. Historians often discuss the cycles of peasant life, noting how deeply their existence was tied to the seasons. In the absence of modern conveniences, survival hinged on an intimate understanding of the natural world. For the peasants, the rhythm of the seasons became their lifeblood. The fire, the hearth, the tools they used, all were a means to an end: survival. But it wasn't just about enduring. It was about living, about finding meaning in the slow, steady work of cultivating the land, of raising families, of building homes. Their strength was not only in their physical endurance, but in their ability to understand the deep, unspoken connection between themselves and the earth that sustained them. You can see this connection reflected in the way the peasants work. They are not frantic, not hurried, but neither are they idle. Their movements are deliberate, measured, honed over years of working the land. They know the soil, they know the seasons, and they know the value of patience. The work is hard, but it's also deeply satisfying. As you watch them move through the fields, you understand that this rhythm, this way of life, isn't just about survival. It's about participating in the ongoing cycle of life. It's a cycle they've been a part of for generations, and one that will continue long after they are gone. The change from winter to spring, from survival to thriving, is not a sudden shift. It's a gradual process, a slow unfolding that mirrors the land itself. As the peasants continue their work, there is no loud celebration, no moment of triumph. Instead, there is quiet satisfaction, an understanding that each action, no matter how small, is a step closer to the rewards of summer. The crops will grow, the animals will flourish, and life will continue. The peasants have made it through the harshest of winters, and now, with the warmth of spring at their backs, they are ready to embrace the next season with quiet hope and unwavering determination. And so, as the sun sinks lower in the sky, casting a soft, golden glow over the fields, you can feel the weight of the seasons lifting. The world is not yet fully awake, but it is stirring, beginning to stretch and prepare for the coming summer. The peasants know what's to come. They know the work will continue, the seasons will change, and they will meet the challenges of the future with the same steady determination that has carried them through every season before. The fire may have burned long and hot during the cold months, but it's now the soil, the sun, and the steady hand of the peasant that will carry them forward. The cycle continues, quietly, steadily, just as it always has. The days are now fully lengthened, and the village has come alive in a way that feels almost like magic. The once barren fields are now filled with rows of green, the tender shoots of crops reaching toward the sky. The peasants, though still busy, now work with a different energy. There is no longer the frantic pace of the winter months, no more scrambling for warmth or food. Now their attention is focused on nurturing the growth they've already started. Every day, the plants grow taller, the animals grow stronger, and the world feels just a little brighter. You can feel it in the way the peasants move steadier, with purpose, but not hurried. There's a calm confidence in the air. After the long, grueling months of winter, this is a reprieve, a reward for all the hard work that has led them to this point. But there's no room for complacency. While the work may now be about tending to crops and caring for animals, it's still an ongoing effort. The peasants know that the hard work doesn't end with spring's arrival. The summer will bring its own challenges, but for now, they are focused on the steady growth around them. The fire, once the heart of every home, is now used more sparingly. The hearth still serves its purpose, providing warmth in the cooler mornings and evenings, but its role has diminished. The warmth of the earth, the sun, and the growing plants have shifted the focus of the home. The door is open more often now, allowing fresh air to flow through the house. The peasants no longer need to huddle around the fire for warmth. Instead, they gather outside, enjoying the sunlight, the warmth of the earth beneath their feet, and the joy of the season's first fruits. You can see how the peasants embrace the season, how their faces seem to lift as the land transforms before them. They move from field to barn, from garden to home, all the while working together, side by side. There is something comforting about the way they work. It's not hurried or anxious. They know that they can't rush nature, that the plants will grow at their own pace, that the earth will give when it's ready. They simply continue, steady and patient, tending to the land that has always provided for them. As the peasants work, the sounds of the village seem to carry a new energy. The chatter of the children, who now spend their days running through the fields, the hum of voices as families gather to eat, the rhythmic sound of tools being used, all of it fills the air, blending together into a steady background of life. The village, once quiet and isolated during the cold months, is now alive with sound, with motion, with the energy of new growth. The fire in the hearth, though still burning, now feels like a soft, quiet presence, a reminder of the months they've survived. It's still important, but it's no longer the centerpiece of their lives. Historians often look at the change in rhythm from winter to spring and consider it a time of renewal, a time when the village shifts from survival to flourishing. It's in these months that the peasants begin to reap the benefits of their hard work, when the land rewards their patience with the first fruits of the season. The shift from the desperate, intense labor of winter to the more relaxed but no less vital work of spring marks a turning point in the year. It's when the peasants can see that their efforts have not been in vain. The harvest is still far off, but for now, the joy of seeing their crops begin to grow fills their hearts with a deep sense of pride. The sense of accomplishment in the village is palpable. You can see it in the way the peasants talk about the land, the pride they take in their work. It's not boastful, but it is deeply felt. These people, who have lived through the harshest winters, and who know better than anyone the fragile nature of survival, now stand in the warmth of spring, with the first signs of the coming abundance all around them. They have endured. And in this quiet, slow-moving season, they are beginning to see the rewards of that endurance. But even as the season shifts, there's still work to be done. The peasants know that this time of year, though filled with promise, is also full of risks. The early crops are delicate, and the weather can still turn on them. A late frost could ruin their hard work. A sudden storm could wash away the seeds they've planted. The work of tending to the land is never done, and they are always vigilant. But the vigilance now is tempered with the quiet knowledge that they are not alone in this work. They have the support of one another, of their community, of their shared labor and dreams for the future. The land may be unpredictable, but together they can endure whatever challenges it brings. You watch as families come together to share meals outside, the sunlight casting a golden glow over everything. There's a quiet joy in the air, a celebration of the work that has been done and the work still to come. The fire burns in the hearth, but now, It's a soft, steady presence, reminding them of the warmth they've relied on through the winter. The land is now their focus, and the hope of the harvest fills the air. They have endured the hardest part. Now, they work together, quietly, steadily, with the knowledge that the land will provide if they continue their labor with patience and care. The village may seem small, but in its quiet resilience, it holds the power to survive and thrive. The seasons continue to turn, each one bringing its own challenges, its own gifts. The peasants understand that survival is never guaranteed, but they also understand the importance of hope, of community, and of living in rhythm with the land. They have learned that survival is not about rushing through life, but about enduring it, step by step, day by day, season by season. And so, with the sun sinking lower in the sky, the fire still crackling softly in the hearth, you realize that this cycle, the cycle of work, of rest, of survival and growth, will continue just as it always has. The fire may no longer burn as brightly, but the warmth, the spirit of resilience remains. The peasants know that no matter what the seasons bring, they will face them together, with steady hands, patient hearts, and the enduring hope that the land will always return. As the sun sets lower, casting long shadows over the village, the pace of life shifts once again. The intensity of spring work is now starting to settle into a steady rhythm, and the peasants are beginning to enjoy the fruits of their labor. The fields are full of promise, the crops growing stronger every day. Though the days are long, they're no longer defined by the grueling work of preparation for winter's bite. Instead, there's a sense of fulfillment in the work, the act of tending the earth, knowing that everything done today will eventually bear fruit in the coming months. The air is thick with the sounds of summer's arrival, the buzz of insects, the rustle of leaves in the trees, the calls of birds that have made their nests nearby. All of these sounds create a lively backdrop to the steady movement of the peasants. The work is still constant, but the heat of the day brings a slower pace, one that's dictated by the rhythms of nature. There's no hurry anymore. The crops are planted, the animals are well cared for, and now the peasants work to maintain what has already been set into motion. It's a more measured pace, still vital, still important, but one that carries with it the luxury of knowing that they are no longer fighting for survival in the same way they were in winter. The fire in the hearth is still there, but it has become less of a lifeline and more of a familiar comfort. It no longer dominates the home. Rather, it quietly glows in the background, offering warmth in the cooler evenings. The long, hot days have meant that the home is often cool enough that the fire is not necessary during the daytime. But as the evening rolls in and the temperature drops, the fire flickers back to life. It's a gentle reminder of all that the hearth has represented: warmth, safety, and community. What's most striking as you watch the peasants now is the ease with which they've adjusted to the changing seasons. The long, harsh months of winter and early spring, where survival was the only focus, have given way to a different kind of work. It's still physical, still demanding, but it's a work that is embedded in the cycle of life. Each day spent planting or tending the crops or caring for the animals is a day spent in harmony with the world around them. And while there are still challenges to face: storms, pests, and the uncertainty of the weather, the peasants move forward with a kind of quiet confidence. They've survived the worst of the cold, and now they wait for the earth to repay their hard work with the bounty of summer. The evening meal, when it comes, is a simple one. The first of the early crops have been harvested, perhaps a few handfuls of new potatoes, a few early greens, or a handful of tender peas. It's not much, but it's enough to remind them that the hard work of spring has paid off. The fire crackles in the hearth as the family gathers together to share a meal. The sense of camaraderie in these moments is palpable. The work of the day is done, and now, around the fire, the family shares stories, laughter, and the quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing that they are part of a greater cycle. The warmth of the fire is not just a physical warmth now, but a social one, a space for connection and community that carries them through the next phase of the year. The village itself, though still small and simple, is now fully in tune with the land around it. The homes, constructed from wood, straw and mud, seem to belong in the landscape. They are a part of the earth, shaped by the very soil they cultivate. The roofs, with their thatch layered carefully over the beams, have stood firm through the trials of winter and are now ready to withstand the summer rains. The homes stand as quiet symbols of the resilience that has allowed the peasants to survive the harshest of seasons, but now they are a part of the natural order of things. They've been shaped by the land, and in turn, they help shape the lives of those who live inside them. And yet, despite the beauty of the cycle, there is always an underlying awareness of the fragility of it all. The peasants understand better than most how quickly things can change. A sudden frost could ruin the early crops, a storm could damage the fragile thatch on the roofs, or a disease could sweep through the animals. But there is no panic in these thoughts, no fear of the inevitable changes that life brings. Instead, there is acceptance. The peasants have lived through enough hardships to know that the cycle of life is constant and unyielding. They know that after every winter, spring will return. After every storm, there will be sunshine. After every hardship, there will be a time to rest. It's a rhythm they have learned to dance to, a rhythm that continues, steady and unbroken. Historians still discuss the impact of such cyclical rhythms on medieval peasant communities. Some argue that it was this connection to the land, this understanding of the seasons, that provided the peasants with a sense of stability. Life, though difficult, had a predictable quality to it. Each season brought its own set of tasks and rewards, and while there was always the uncertainty of nature's whims, the peasants could find solace in the repetition, in the certainty that the cycle would continue. It's a belief that sustained them, even in the hardest of times. Now, as you watch the peasants work, you begin to understand that their strength isn't just in their ability to endure. It's in their ability to live with the land, to work in tandem with the seasons, and to accept the rhythm of life as it unfolds. There is no rush, no frantic pushing against the inevitable. Instead, the peasants move with the seasons, adapting, waiting, and working to ensure that when the next season comes, they will be ready for it. The fire continues to burn, though its presence is more symbolic now. The sun shines long into the evening, casting a golden light over the village. The peasants have survived the darkest days. They've seen winter give way to spring, and now they wait for summer to arrive. But for now, they enjoy the warmth, the abundance, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that they have endured. And in that quiet satisfaction, there's a sense of peace, a deep, unspoken gratitude for the land that sustains them, and the community that supports them. The days stretch on, lazily, under the warmth of the summer Sunday. The earth, now in full bloom, is teeming with life. The peasants, having planted the seeds of their future in the spring, now watch as their labor begins to bear fruit. The crops grow tall, the animals graze freely in the lush fields, and the village seems to buzz with the quiet energy of summer. The fire in the hearth, while still maintained in the evenings, has taken on a different role. Its warmth is no longer an absolute necessity. Instead, it becomes a gentle comfort, a presence in the evening to ward off the cooler nights. You watch the peasants as they move between fields, barnyards, and homes, each step more measured now. They are accustomed to the rhythm of the land, familiar with the pace of life that the seasons dictate. The work is still there, always there, but it is now a work of cultivation. There is no longer the frantic rush to prepare for winter's bite. Instead, it's the steady, purposeful work of tending, of waiting, of guiding the earth's bounty into its full glory. The peasants don't rush their work. They simply observe, nurture, and care for what has been sown. There's a quiet beauty in the way the peasants go about their tasks. Their movements are efficient, purposeful, but not hurried. They've spent years, lifetimes, mastering this work. The sowing, the tending, the harvesting, it's as natural to them as breathing. The land is their companion, and they have learned to work with it, not against it. The soil that they once fought to prepare in the cold of winter now yields effortlessly, like an old friend offering its hand. The village itself has transformed in the summer light. The homes, once dark and insulated against the biting winds of winter, now stand open to the Sunday. The thatched roofs, covered in moss and clay, hold firm against the warmth and rains of summer. The peasants, who once gathered around the hearth to share stories and warmth in the long winter months, now find themselves gathering in the fields, working together to ensure that the harvest will come. The sounds of their work fill the air, the rhythmic pounding of hoes on earth, the gentle lowing of cattle, the soft murmur of voices carried on the wind. It's the sound of life in motion, the sound of a community in its prime. You can see how, even in the warmth of summer, the fire retains its significance. Though no longer the focal point of daily life, the hearth still holds meaning for the peasants. It's the place where food is cooked, where warmth is gathered in the evenings, and where the family comes together after a long day's work. In the cooler mornings and evenings, the fire provides a gentle warmth, drawing the family together in the same way it did during the hardest parts of winter. The rhythms of the fire remain steady, a constant in a world that is always shifting. But as the crops grow and the animals flourish, the fire takes on a different role. It is less of a life-sustaining force and more of a place for connection and reflection. The harshness of winter has passed, and now, in the softness of summer, the peasants gather around the fire not out of necessity but out of tradition, out of the shared space it creates. They still share meals, tell stories, and celebrate small victories, but now it's done with the ease that comes from knowing they've made it through the worst. They've endured the struggle of winter and come out the other side, and now the fire is a gentle reminder of that resilience. In many ways, this period of summer feels like a reward. It's a time of rest, of enjoying the fruits of their labor, of looking ahead to the harvest and the bounty it will bring. The work of survival, while never truly over, has shifted. It's no longer about bracing for the cold, for the hunger, for the isolation. It's now about enjoying the abundance of the earth, savoring the quiet joy of watching crops grow, of knowing that the animals are healthy and that food is plentiful. This is the time to celebrate the harvest that will come, to prepare for the quieter months that are still ahead, and to enjoy the present moment. Yet even in this time of relative ease, there's still an underlying awareness of the cycle. The peasants know that the work of survival is ongoing. They are not complacent in their success, but instead, they see each season as part of a larger journey. The work they do today ensures that the harvest will come tomorrow. And when winter rolls around again, they will be ready, just as they were before. The cycle continues, unbroken, steady, relentless. You notice too how the land itself seems to celebrate summer. The once barren trees now stand tall, their branches heavy with the weight of leaves and fruit. The fields are full of green, and the air smells of the earth's sweetness, of new growth, of promise. The peasants have become part of this land, they've shaped it, and it has shaped them. In the summertime, it's almost as if the land is returning the favor. It's a quiet exchange, one built on years of understanding and effort. The earth gives, but it also takes. The peasants know that even in the fullness of summer, there are still dangers ahead. The weather can turn in an instant, and a sudden storm or drought can ruin the hard work of months. Yet the peasants continue, aware of these risks but undeterred. They've learned to adapt, to bend with the winds, to endure whatever the seasons throw their way. It's this resilience, this steady determination, that has seen them through the hardest times. And it's this same spirit that carries them through the joy and work of summer. As the sun sets on another warm evening, the fire crackles softly, its glow reflecting the peace of the day. The village settles in for another night, the rhythmic sounds of nature outside blending with the quiet comfort of the hearth. The peasants may be tired from the work of the day, but they are also filled with a deep, quiet pride. They've survived, they've worked, and now they rest, knowing that when tomorrow comes, the cycle will begin anew. And so, the seasons continue, each one bringing its own challenges, its own rewards. The fire will burn on, but so too will the crops grow, the animals thrive, and the village continue its steady rhythm. The peasants have learned that life is not a sprint, but a cycle, a never-ending dance with the land. And with each season, they grow stronger, more connected, and more resilient. In the hearth, in the fields, in the quiet moments spent together, the peasants find their strength. And in the warmth of summer, they know that they have made it through the hardest of winters, and they are ready for whatever the seasons will bring. As the weeks slip into the steady heat of midsummer, the village remains a place of constant motion, though its rhythms have shifted once again. The fields, once soft and tender with new growth, are now thick with the promise of harvest. The peasants, though no longer rushing to plant or tend to the earliest crops, still find themselves working from dawn to dusk. Now, it's about weeding, protecting the plants from pests, and ensuring that the growing crops have everything they need to reach maturity. Their movements are purposeful but no longer frantic. They found a steady pace that matches the warmth of the sun, the rhythms of the land. The work is still vital, but there's a quiet satisfaction to it now. The hard preparations of spring, the uncertainty of winter, all seem like distant memories. There's a certain ease that comes with the full bloom of summer. The peasants still work, but the urgency has softened. They no longer face the pressure of surviving the cold. Instead, their energy is focused on making sure that what has been planted continues to grow strong and healthy. The fire, though still flickering in the hearth during the cooler evenings, feels like an echo of winter. The warmth of the day has replaced the need for its constant presence. You can feel the sun's heat wrapping around everything, from the furrows of the soil to the edges of the village itself. The once crucial fire, the symbol of survival during the bitterest months, now becomes a place of reflection and quiet gathering. It draws the family in at night, offering comfort not out of necessity but out of tradition. In the evenings, as the sun sets and the heat of the day begins to dissipate, the peasants gather around the fire. There is no rush, no worry. The crops are well cared for, the animals fed, the work done for the day. Now, the fire serves as a space for conversation, for sharing meals, for quiet moments of togetherness. The long days of summer have softened everything. The pace of life has slowed to match the warmth that surrounds them. You can almost feel the energy of the village relax into a deeper sense of peace. The sounds of life around the village have changed too. The buzz of insects fills the air, and the distant sounds of children's laughter echo through the fields as they play. The adults are busy, of course, but there's no longer a sense of desperation in their actions. The long days give ample time to work and then rest. The children, once confined to the hearth during winter's cold, now roam freely in the warmth, helping with small tasks and learning the ways of the land. Their voices carry through the fields, and you can hear the joy in their laughter, the carefree nature of summer that seems to seep into every corner of life. In the evenings, when the heat of the day has finally passed, the fire provides a space for the peasants to gather and reflect. The day's work is done, and now they sit together, enjoying the warmth and the company of one another. The firelight dances on their faces, casting a soft glow over their features. They share stories, passing down knowledge from one generation to the next. In these moments, the fire is more than just a source of warmth. It is a symbol of the community, the shared history that binds them together. It is a reminder of how far they have come, how much they have endured, and how much they have accomplished together. The rhythms of summer are not just about the work of the fields, they are about the quiet satisfaction of seeing the earth come to life. The peasants look out over the fields, watching as their efforts begin to take root. The crops that were once fragile seedlings are now strong and hearty, reaching toward the sky, ready for the harvest. The animals graze lazily in the fields, their coats glistening in the warm Sunday. There is a sense of accomplishment, a deep pride in the knowledge that they have done the hard work, and now they can simply wait for the bounty to come. Historians often speak of the resilience of medieval peasants, not just in their ability to survive the harshness of winter, but in their ability to endure the long, unrelenting cycle of labor that the seasons demanded. It wasn't just about getting through the cold months. It was about living with the seasons, adapting to the rhythm of the earth. The peasants knew that their survival depended on the land and the labor they put into it. Each season brought its own set of challenges, but with each passing season, they grew stronger, more connected to the land they worked. As you watch the peasants work, it's hard not to feel a sense of admiration for them. Their strength lies not just in their ability to endure hardship, but in their ability to live in harmony with the land. They've learned to work with nature, to understand its rhythms, and to adapt their lives to the cycles it demands. The fire that once served as a constant source of warmth in the dead of winter is now a symbol of the past, a reminder of the resilience that carried them through the darkest months. It now sits quietly in the background, offering warmth when needed, but never overshadowing the peace that has settled over the village in the warmth of summer. The cycle of life continues. The peasants will continue their work, tending to the fields, watching over the crops, and preparing for the harvest. But for now, they can rest. The worst of the work is behind them, and they can savor the calm, the joy, and the warmth of summer. They know that the work will continue, that the seasons will change once again, but for now they are content. They have survived, they have thrived, and they are ready for whatever comes next. As the fire crackles softly in the hearth, the village settles into the warmth of the summer evening. The rhythm of life, slow and steady, continues. The peasants have found their balance, and they know that, no matter what the future holds, they will continue to live in harmony with the land. And in the quiet comfort of the firelight, they know that, as long as they remain connected to the earth, they will continue to endure, to thrive, and to survive, season after season. As the heat of summer deepens, the village is a place of hard-won serenity. The crops are now well on their way, the green fields are filled with promise, and the air is thick with the scents of ripening fruit and the fresh, earthy aroma of the soil. The peasants move with a steady, practiced ease. There is no frantic hurry, no immediate sense of pressing need. They've made it through the long winter and the hard, slow work of spring, and now there's a deep, quiet satisfaction in their daily labor. The worst of the work is behind them, and the knowledge that their efforts are starting to pay off hangs in the warm summer air. The fire, though still a constant presence, is no longer the symbol of survival that it once was. It is now a reminder of the past, of the long, cold months that have given way to this time of growth and abundance. The hearth still glows in the evenings, but its warmth is a comfort, not a necessity. The days are long, the sun lingers late into the evening, and the air is thick with the sound of insects, birds, and the rustle of leaves. The firelight in the evening is a quiet echo of the strength and endurance the peasants have shown in the past months. It represents the beginning of a new season. The harvest is still to come, but for now, there is peace, and that peace is something the peasants cherish. In the village, life feels almost suspended, as if time itself has slowed down to match the easy, measured pace of the summer. The peasants continue to work the fields, tending to the crops and the animals, but the urgency of the previous seasons has faded. There's a tranquility to the work now. Each task seems almost meditative in its repetition. Watering the crops, checking the fences, gathering the fruits and vegetables that are already starting to ripen, it all carries with it the promise of what is to come. The days flow into one another, a seamless thread of work and rest, of labor and reward. You notice too the change in the villagers. The long winter has passed, and the spring's hard work is now being rewarded with the peaceful joys of summer. The peasants are no longer confined to their homes, nor are they laboring in the fields from dawn till dusk, preparing for the uncertainty of winter. Now, their work is less about survival and more about cultivation, both of the earth and of themselves. The children, who spent so many cold months bundled up near the fire, now run freely in the open air. their faces flushed with the joy of being able to roam, to play, to experience the world without the weight of the cold pressing down on them. They've learned how to work, but they've also learned how to celebrate, how to take in the fullness of the world around them. The adults too move with a new sense of ease. The early months of the year were filled with tension and concern over the fire, over food, over surviving the long, cold months. But now, that tension has shifted into something different. It's still a quiet vigilance, but it's a vigilance of hope. The crops are growing, the animals are thriving, and the harvest, though still a little way off, feels close enough to touch. There's a shift in the air, a palpable sense of anticipation mixed with the tranquility of summer. The peasants don't rush. They understand that everything has its time. They've worked hard to get here, and now they work with the land, not against it. They wait, but they wait with patience, with an understanding that what they've planted will soon bear fruit. The fire, though no longer the center of their lives, still plays a key role in the daily rhythm. It serves as a place for gathering, for reflection, for moments of quiet togetherness at the end of the day. The long evenings are filled with stories shared around the hearth, with food prepared and eaten in the soft glow of the firelight. These moments are simple, yet profound. The fire, like the hearth, has become a symbol of the village's enduring connection to one another. It's a space where the work of the day is acknowledged, where the weight of the seasons is felt in the silence that settles over the room. Historians often speak of the importance of communal spaces like the hearth in medieval life. It was not just a place for warmth or cooking, it was a place for connection, for stories, for life to unfold. And even now, in the heat of summer, the fire remains a key piece of that connection. The peasants come together around it at the end of their workday, finding comfort in the flickering warmth, in the shared presence of family and community. It is here, in these moments, that they find peace after the intensity of the seasons. The fire is not just a tool, it is a bridge between past and present, a constant in a world of changing rhythms. As you watch the village settle into the slow, steady flow of summer, you're struck by how much has changed. The harshness of winter feels far away, replaced by the abundance of the present. The fields are full of crops, the barns full of animals, the homes full of life. The peasants have worked hard to get here, but now they enjoy the peace that comes with a job well done. The fire still burns in the hearth, but now it is a comfort, a connection to the past, a reminder of the seasons that have passed. You can't help but feel a deep sense of respect for the way these people live. They've endured so much winter's cold, the work of planting, the uncertainty of each season, but they've also thrived. They've learned to work with the land, to respect its rhythms, to live in harmony with it. The fire, the hearth, the fields all are part of this cycle, part of the rhythm of life. And as the sun sets on another summer day, you realize that the peasants' greatest strength lies in their ability to live with the seasons, to accept the ebb and flow of life, and to endure whatever comes next, with patience and hope. The summer deepens, and with it, the village settles further into its familiar rhythm. The days seem to stretch on forever, long and warm, filled with the quiet work of tending to the crops, the animals, and the small daily tasks that fill the hours. There is still work to be done, but the urgency has passed. The peasants move with purpose, but their pace has slowed, aligned with the sun that now lingers high in the sky. The heat of the day comes with a kind of comfort. The warmth that once felt oppressive is now a familiar presence, something that signifies life rather than struggle. There is peace in the air, a soft, steady contentment that permeates the village. The fire, though it still burns in the evenings, has now taken on a different character. It no longer represents the struggle against the cold or the need to gather warmth. Instead, it is a companion in the coolness of night, a steady flicker of light in the quiet of the evening. As the last rays of the sun dip below the horizon, the hearth comes alive once more. The fire's glow casts long shadows across the room, painting the walls with warmth and comfort. The villagers, though they've spent their days in the fields or tending to the animals, now gather around the fire. It's a time for family, for quiet moments of rest after a long day. The rhythm of work and rest has become second nature, the ebb and flow of summer life that balances effort with relaxation. The meal is simple, as it always is in these times. There's no need for elaborate preparation. The abundance of summer brings a certain ease to the table. Fresh vegetables, perhaps a few early fruits, and the fruits of the animals they've tended to, are shared freely among the family. There is a joy in these moments, not because of the richness of the meal, but because of the effort it took to get here. The fire that crackles in the hearth, the warmth that spreads through the room, feels like a reward for the work that has come before. As you watch the peasants, you notice the small, almost imperceptible changes in their demeanor. The hard work of planting, of preparing for the winter, is behind them now. They've made it through the hardest of the seasons, and now, in the quiet of summer, they are able to enjoy the fruit of their labor. Their faces are softer, more relaxed, as though they can finally breathe, finally take a moment to appreciate the peace that comes with the height of the season. They sit together, sharing stories, laughing, and simply being together, grateful for the simple joys of life. The sound of the fire is a constant in the background, the soft crackle of wood, the occasional pop, the warmth that spreads from the hearth. It is a sound that has become familiar, that signals both an end to the day and a beginning of rest. There is something timeless about it. The fire, though no longer a necessity for survival, remains a part of the rhythm of life. It is where families gather, where stories are shared, where the connection to the past and the future are felt most acutely. It is a space where the work of the day is acknowledged, but also set aside, where the weight of the seasons is momentarily lifted. The village, too, seems to be in sync with the seasons. The houses, once closed tightly against the winter cold, are now open, windows thrown wide to let the warmth and light of the sun in. The once stifling air is now alive with the sound of life children running through the fields, animals grazing peacefully, the steady hum of activity that fills the village with a sense of purpose and ease. The once quiet village is now alive with the buzz of life, the movement of people going about their daily tasks, the satisfaction of knowing that they are part of something larger, part of a cycle that is both unyielding and beautiful. The peasants, while still working, now know the comfort of a job well done. The crops are growing strong, the animals are healthy, and the promise of the harvest looms ahead. But they are not consumed by it. They work steadily, thoughtfully, but without the urgency they once felt. There's a sense of security now, a quiet confidence in the knowledge that the worst is behind them. The fire is not a symbol of survival anymore, but of community, of warmth shared between those who have weathered the hardships together. The land, though still demanding, is now their partner in the work of life. The work of surviving has transitioned into the work of thriving, and they approach it with a quiet, steadfast energy. The evening is filled with moments of simple joy. The children's laughter rings through the air as they run through the fields, chasing one another, their faces bright with freedom. The adults, their work for the day done, share stories and food, exchanging the simple pleasures of summer. The warmth of the fire, the soft glow of the hearth, becomes a kind of sacred space, where time slows down and everything that matters seems to fall into place. The struggles of winter seem far removed, the anxieties of the past months fading into the background. For now, there is peace. For now, the fire burns not just to warm but to illuminate the beauty of this quiet life. The fire, still present and ever warm, reminds them that everything in life is cyclical. The winter, the spring, the summer, and the fall, they are all parts of the same journey. The peasants have seen each cycle unfold before them, year after year, and they have come to understand its rhythms. The fire may burn bright in the darkest months, but in the light of summer it serves as a quiet reminder that life, like the seasons, is constantly in motion. It is a comfort, a source of connection to the past and a beacon for the future. As you sit by the fire with the peasants, you realize that survival is never a solitary pursuit. It is a communal effort, a shared responsibility, a quiet but unyielding determination to work together, to endure together, and to celebrate the moments of peace when they come. The warmth of the fire, the glow of the hearth, the laughter shared around the table, all of it is a testament to the strength and resilience of the community and to the enduring connection between the peasants and the land that sustains them. As summer slowly begins to surrender to the first hints of autumn, there's a palpable shift in the air. The once vibrant green fields now show the early signs of ripening. The crops have grown tall and full, their fruits heavy with promise. The peasants, who have spent so many months working tirelessly, are now beginning to taste the fruits of their labor. The work is far from over, but there's a quiet anticipation in the air. The harvest is drawing near, and with it comes a sense of satisfaction, an understanding that their efforts, their long hours in the fields, will soon be rewarded. The fire in the hearth, which has served as a comforting presence through both the harsh winter and the gentle warmth of summer, now feels like a bridge between the two seasons. The long days are gradually growing shorter, and the cool of the evening is becoming more pronounced. The fire, which once provided warmth against the bitter cold, now provides comfort against the crisp air that begins to creep in at dusk. The hearth becomes a center of transition, where the soft glow of the fire mingles with the lingering warmth of the day. The peasants, though still busy with the final work of the season, seem to exhale collectively. The hard work of planting, tending, and watching their crops grow is nearing its culmination. The harvest is almost within reach. You notice how the atmosphere in the village has changed. There's a sense of camaraderie that wasn't there before, people working together, not just out of necessity, but in a shared effort to see the harvest through. The long summer has allowed them to rebuild the relationships that were stretched thin by the isolation of winter. Now, there's a sense of collective effort in the air. The work of the fields is no longer an individual task, it's a communal one. Everyone plays a part in ensuring that the harvest will come, that the work will be completed together. It's this collective effort, this unspoken bond between neighbors, that holds the village together. The fire, as it flickers in the evening, is a symbol of this unity. It is the place where the work of the day is acknowledged, where the labor of the field is celebrated, and where the first fruits of the harvest are shared. The fire burns low, its warmth still felt in the cool evening air, but it no longer demands the same attention it once did. The peasants gather around the hearth, their faces glowing in the firelight, and share a meal, a simple meal, made from the first of the harvested crops. There's a quiet joy in these moments, a contentment that speaks to their deep connection to the land and to each other. The fire, like the seasons, is both a constant and a reminder of the passage of time. It stands as a silent witness to their labor, their efforts, and their shared hope for the future. As you sit with the peasants around the fire, you realize how much of their lives is woven into the rhythm of the seasons. They are not merely surviving, they are living, thriving, working in harmony with the world around them. The fire, the hearth, the crops, the animals, they are all interconnected in a way that speaks to the balance of life itself. The fire is a living thing, constantly fed and tended, just as the land requires constant care. It's a reminder that everything in life requires effort, but that effort is not just about survival, it's about living in tune with the world around you. As the harvest approaches, there's an awareness in the air. The peasants know that the work is not yet done. There's still much to be harvested, much to be stored away for the colder months ahead. But there's also a sense of peace, of knowing that the cycle is nearing completion. The crops have grown, the land has been tended, and now it is time to reap what has been sown. The fire in the hearth flickers softly, a steady presence in the evening that mirrors the rhythm of life itself. It's not just the warmth it provides that's important, it's the consistency, the stability, the reassurance that no matter the season, the work will continue and the community will endure. Historians often speak of the deep connection between medieval peasants and the land they worked. It wasn't just a matter of necessity, it was a relationship that defined their very existence. The peasants knew that their survival was tied to the cycles of nature, to the rhythms of the earth. And in the changing of the seasons, from the bitter cold of winter to the warmth of summer and back again, they learned to live with nature, to adapt to its challenges, and to thrive within its rhythms. The fire, in many ways, is a symbol of that connection, a living, breathing part of their lives that sustains them through the harshest seasons and provides comfort in the gentler ones. As the first fruits of the harvest begin to fill the tables, there's a quiet celebration in the village. The fire is stoked, the meal is shared, and the community comes together to acknowledge the hard work that has brought them here. The crops are not yet fully gathered, but the first taste of the harvest is a reminder of the journey they've all taken together. It is a time to rest, to reflect, and to appreciate the work that has been done, knowing that the full reward of their labor is still to come. And so, as the sun sets on another day, the fire continues to burn in the hearth, its glow a reminder of the past and a beacon for the future. The peasants gather around it, sharing in the warmth, in the food, and in the quiet satisfaction of knowing that they have done what they set out to do. The harvest is coming, and with it, the promise of another season. The fire burns on, steady and warm, a constant presence in a world of change. The cycles continue, unbroken, and the peasants are ready for whatever comes next. As the first chill of autumn begins to bite at the edges of the day, there's a noticeable shift in the air. The village, which had once felt like it was bursting with the energy of summer, now moves with a quieter rhythm. The harvest is near completion, and with it, there comes a palpable sense of satisfaction. The work of the past months, the planting, the tending, and the careful nurturing of the land is now being rewarded. The crops are ripe, and the barns are filling with the fruits of their labor. The days are still long, but the evenings have grown shorter, the shadows growing longer as the sun sets earlier. There is a gentle turning inward as the village prepares for the coming winter months. The fire in the hearth has now become more than just a comforting presence. It's a necessity. The air is crisper, and the warmth of the fire feels like a welcome companion. As the peasants gather around the hearth, there's a sense of relief, but also a quiet reflection. The summer, though filled with hard work, was also a time of abundance. The harvest, though not yet complete, has already yielded enough to ease their fears of the coming cold. The fire crackles in the hearth, its warmth spreading through the room, providing comfort and solace after the long hours spent working in the fields. As the peasants sit around the fire, you can see the quiet joy that comes with the end of the harvest. The work is not yet done, but the hardest part is over. The fruits of their labor are now in the barn, and the preparation for winter has begun. The fire serves not just as warmth, but as a reminder of all they've accomplished. There's a sense of accomplishment in the air, a feeling of peace that comes from knowing they have made it through another season. The fire, now more vital than ever, is both a symbol of survival and a source of comfort. The family, having gathered around the hearth, share a simple meal, the bounty of the harvest laid out before them. There is no extravagance here, no abundance that will go to waste. The meal is modest, yet it is enough. The vegetables, freshly pulled from the ground, the bread, baked from the last of the summer's grain, and perhaps a bit of preserved meat, are all that they need. The peasants eat in silence at first, savouring the fruits of their labour. It is not a feast, but it is a meal that holds the weight of their efforts. They've worked hard, and now they can sit back for a moment, enjoying the quiet joy that comes from a job well done. The fire continues to crackle, its warmth filling the room as the family finishes their meal. There's a calmness in the air now, a sense that, despite the challenges ahead, they have made it through. The land has given them what they need, and now, as the season changes once again, they can look forward to the winter knowing that they have done everything they can to prepare. The fire is a constant, steady presence, and as it flickers in the hearth, It offers a reminder of everything the peasants have endured and everything they've accomplished. As you watch the family, you begin to understand that the fire is more than just a source of heat or light. It's a place of connection, of reflection, and of hope. It is where the family comes together, where they share their stories, their struggles, and their triumphs. It is a space where the labor of the day is acknowledged and where the work ahead is anticipated with quiet resolve. The fire, in many ways, is a metaphor for the peasants' lives. It burns steadily, even when the world outside is cold and uncertain. It provides warmth when needed, light in the darkness, and a sense of continuity in a world that is always shifting. The harvest may be over for now, but the work of survival continues. The peasants are preparing for the winter, storing away food, repairing their homes, and ensuring that they will have enough to see them through the colder months. The fire, though no longer the central force it once was, is still the heart of the home. It provides comfort during the long nights, and its steady warmth reminds them of the strength they've drawn from it through the years. Historians often reflect on how the cycles of agriculture shaped the lives of medieval peasants. The land was both a provider and a taskmaster. The peasants knew that survival depended on their ability to work with the land, to understand its rhythms, and to adapt to its changes. And in that work there was a deeper connection to the world around them. The fire, in its own way, was a symbol of that connection, of their reliance on the land, on each other, and on the seasons that governed their lives. As you sit with the peasants around the fire, you realize that their strength lies not just in their ability to endure the hardships of the seasons, but in their ability to live in harmony with them. They are not merely surviving, they are living, thriving, and adapting to the world around them. The fire, though once a symbol of survival, is now a symbol of continuity. It is a reminder that no matter how cold the winter may be, there is always warmth to be found in the hearth, in the home, and in the shared strength of community. The family gathers close to the fire, their faces glowing in its warmth. The sounds of the night crickets chirping, the rustle of the wind outside seem far away. In this moment, there is peace, a quiet sense of contentment that speaks to the simple joy of being together. The fire burns low, and the village, though still filled with the work of preparing for winter, is at rest. The rhythm of the seasons continues, and with it, the quiet strength of the peasants, who know that no matter what the future holds, they will endure. As the crispness of autumn settles in, the first true hints of winter's approach are felt in the cool bite of the evening air. The days, once long and sun-soaked, are growing shorter, and the gentle warmth of summer is becoming a distant memory. The harvest, though mostly gathered, isn't quite finished, and the work in the fields continues at a slower, more deliberate pace. The peasants, having seen the bounty of the land, are now preparing for what's ahead, both the closing of the harvest and the oncoming winter. It is a time of transition, of preparation, but also of quiet reflection on the work that has been done. The fire in the hearth grows more important now. Though the warmth of the late summer sun lingers in the early afternoons, it fades quickly as the evenings close in. As the peasants sit by the hearth, they savor the comfort it provides, feeling its warmth spread through their bones after a long day of hard work. The crackling of the fire is a soothing sound, offering both light and heat, creating a peaceful sanctuary from the growing cold outside. It is the same fire that has burned through the long dark winters, but now it has become a symbol of preparation, preparing for the winter ahead, preparing to face whatever challenges the cold months may bring. You can sense the quiet focus of the peasants as they finish the last of the harvest. The work is slower now, more methodical. There's no longer the frantic rush to get everything in the ground, to make sure the crops grow strong. Now, it's about bringing in what remains and preserving it, ensuring that everything is ready to be stored for the long winter ahead. You see the peasants pulling in the last of the vegetables from the garden, storing grains in the barn, and preparing the animals for the months of cold. The work is no less important now, but it is more measured, more reflective, The urgency has faded. There's no need for haste, only for careful, deliberate preparation. The fire continues to burn steadily in the hearth, its glow casting a soft light on the family as they gather around it. The peasants sit together in a quiet, comfortable silence, knowing that the hardest part of the year is coming to an end. The labor of the past months is behind them, and now they can begin to look forward to the months of winter. The fire is a place of solace, a place of warmth and comfort as the world outside grows colder. In these quiet moments, there is a sense of peace, of knowing that they have done what needed to be done. The work will continue, of course, but for now, the fire is enough. The warmth it provides is not just physical, it is emotional, a steady reminder of the resilience and strength that has seen them through the harshest of seasons. The peasants share a simple meal, the fruits of the harvest, made into a hearty stew, served with freshly baked bread. It's not a lavish feast, but it is satisfying. The meal is rich with the flavors of the land, the vegetables fresh from the earth, the meat that has been carefully prepared and preserved. The meal feels like a celebration, a quiet acknowledgement of the hard work that has gone into bringing them to this point. The peasants eat slowly, savoring each bite, enjoying the warmth of the food and the fire, the companionship of family, and the satisfaction of knowing that they have weathered another year. As you watch the peasants, you realize how much the fire has become a symbol of the seasons themselves. It is the warmth that has sustained them through the coldest winters, but it is also the light that has illuminated their work in the long, dark nights. It has been the constant companion through every season, offering comfort, solace, and a sense of continuity. The fire has been there in the harshest of times, a beacon in the darkness, a steady force that has carried them through their struggles. And now, in the quiet of autumn, as they prepare for the winter ahead, the fire continues to burn, a reminder that no matter the season they have endured, and they will continue to do so. Historians often speak of the strength of medieval peasants, not just in their ability to endure hardship, but in their ability to adapt, to work in harmony with the land and the seasons. The cycle of the seasons is not one of constant struggle, but one of balance, of adaptation. The peasants know that survival is not just about overcoming the cold of winter or the heat of summer. It is about living with the land, working with it, understanding its rhythms, and finding peace in the inevitable cycles of life. And the fire, though it serves a practical purpose, is also a symbol of that deep connection to the earth, to the seasons, and to each other. As the night deepens and the fire burns lower, the family settles into a quiet rhythm. The day's work is done, the harvest is nearly complete, and the long winter months are approaching. The fire, though not as essential as it once was, remains a constant presence. It's a reminder of everything the peasants have endured and everything they have accomplished. It is a space for rest, for reflection, and for connection. The warmth it provides is more than just physical, it is emotional, a steady force that has carried them through the darkest seasons and continues to carry them as the world outside begins to cool and quiet. The work of survival is never truly over. There will always be challenges to face, seasons to navigate, and labor to perform. But for now, as the fire crackles softly in the hearth, the peasants have earned their rest. The harvest is nearly in, the preparations for winter are almost complete, and the quiet peace of autumn has settled over the village. And as the fire burns low, the peasants rest in the warmth of what they've accomplished, knowing that the cycle of life, like the seasons, will continue. As the first frost settles over the village, the world outside begins to change once again. The once green fields are now covered in a blanket of white, the leaves on the trees long since fallen. The sun, once so warm and generous, now dips lower in the sky, casting long, cool shadows across the land. The days are shorter, the nights longer, and the cold begins to creep into every corner of the village. But inside the homes, there is warmth. The fire in the hearth, now essential once more, burns brightly, its crackling flames a comforting presence against the bitter chill outside. It is the fire that marks the turning of the seasons, from the abundance of autumn to the harsh reality of winter. It is a source of light, heat, and community, bringing the family together in the quiet, dark evenings. The peasants, who have spent the past months preparing for this moment, now settle into the rhythm of winter. There is work still to be done, of course. The animals need to be tended to, the firewood needs to be replenished, and the food needs to be carefully rationed to ensure it lasts until the first signs of spring. But there is a sense of relief in the air, a sense that they have made it through the hardest part of the year. The harvest is in, the barns are full, and the fire, though now a necessity for warmth, offers more than just heat. It offers a place of gathering, of rest, and of reflection. You can feel the difference in the village now. The energy has shifted. The hustle and bustle of the growing season are behind them, and now there is a quieter, more deliberate pace. The work of the fields is done, and for the next few months, the peasants will focus on maintaining what they have. The rhythm of life, though still defined by labor, is now slower, more reflective. The peasants move with a calm efficiency, tending to their animals, checking their stores, ensuring that everything is in order for the months ahead. It's not that the work has stopped, it has simply shifted. It is a time of preparation and preservation, a time to settle into the quiet, introspective months of winter. The fire in the hearth, always a constant in the peasant home, now takes on a new significance. It is no longer just a source of warmth, it is a gathering place, a source of light and life in the darkest months of the year. The family gathers around it each evening, sharing stories, meals, and the simple pleasure of being together. There's a sense of comfort in these moments, a deep sense of peace that comes from knowing that they have made it through the hardships of the past year. The fire burns steady, its warmth wrapping around the family like a blanket, providing not just physical warmth, but emotional warmth as well. The winter months, while harsh, are not without their rewards. There's a certain tranquility that comes with the quiet of winter, the long nights, the stillness of the snow-covered fields, the peace that comes with knowing that the worst is behind them. The fire, now more important than ever, offers comfort during these long, cold nights. It is a steady presence in the home, a symbol of continuity and resilience. The peasants know that the cold will last for several months, but they also know that the warmth of the fire will carry them through, just as it has carried their ancestors through countless winters before them. You watch the peasants as they sit together around the fire, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the flames. There is a quiet satisfaction in the air, a sense of contentment that comes with having done the hard work of the year. The harvest is in, the animals are settled for the season, and now there is time to rest. The fire burns low, crackling softly as the family shares their evening meal. It is simple food, as always stews, bread, and perhaps a bit of preserved meat. There's no extravagance, but there is an abundance that feels just right. The food, prepared from the fruits of their labor, nourishes not only their bodies, but also their spirits. They've made it through another year, and they are ready to face the challenges that the next season will bring. The fire is more than just a source of warmth now. It is a symbol of the cycle of life, of the unbroken rhythm of the seasons. It represents the endurance of the peasants, the work that has been done, and the rest that is earned. As the fire continues to burn through the long winter nights, it is a reminder that the work of survival is never truly over. It is an ongoing effort, a steady commitment to the rhythms of the land, to the seasons that come and go. The fire is both a source of comfort and a symbol of resilience. It has carried the peasants through the darkest months, and it will continue to burn, steady and warm, as they face the winter ahead. Historians often reflect on how the cyclical nature of life shaped medieval peasant communities. The seasons, with all their hardships and rewards, defined the rhythm of life. Survival was never guaranteed, but the fire, the hearth, and the land were constants, providing both the practical necessities and the emotional anchor that kept families and communities together. The peasants knew that survival was about more than just physical endurance. It was about community, about coming together around the fire to share in the work and the rewards of the seasons. The fire was the heart of the home, the symbol of their connection to each other and to the land that sustained them. As the winter settles in and the cold grows more intense, the peasants continue their work, but they also take time to rest, to gather, and to reflect. The fire, though no longer the focal point of their labor, remains the center of their social lives. It is the place where stories are told, where lessons are passed down, and where the bonds of family and community are strengthened. The hearth is the place where the work of survival is not just acknowledged but celebrated. It is the place where the peasants find warmth, comfort, and most importantly, the strength to endure whatever the future may bring. And so, as the fire burns steadily in the hearth, the village settles into the quiet of winter, knowing that they have done the work of the year and are now ready for the months ahead. The seasons will continue, the cycles will turn, and the fire will always burn, steady and warm, guiding them through whatever challenges lie ahead. The winter nights grow colder still, but inside the village, life continues with a quiet rhythm. The snow blankets the earth, the fields now a vast expanse of white, untouched by the bustling activity of summer and autumn. The peasants, though accustomed to the cold, now feel the full weight of winter pressing against them. The fire burns brightly in the hearth, its warmth a constant companion in the dark, chilly nights. The hearth, though still central to the daily life of the village, is now more than just a source of heat. It becomes a place of refuge, a comforting presence during the stillness of winter, where families huddle together, share stories, and seek warmth from the cold that seems to permeate everything outside. As the peasants gather around the fire, you notice how the once frenzied energy of the harvest has faded. The urgency of the growing season has been replaced with a slower, more contemplative pace. The work is still there, but it's the kind of work that matches the rhythm of winter, slow, steady, and focused on preservation. The animals are cared for, the food is rationed carefully, and the homes are maintained to ensure that they will withstand the cold. There is no rush now, no frantic need to plant or harvest. Instead, the peasants settle into the quiet of winter, where every small task is done with the understanding that it is part of the larger cycle of survival. The fire in the hearth continues to burn, steady and unwavering, much like the efforts of the peasants themselves. The meal, like so many of the winter meals, is simple but nourishing. The peasants eat in silence, savouring the warmth of the food, the comfort of the fire, and the presence of one another. There are no lavish feasts during these months, just hearty stews, thick bread, and preserved meat. Yet, there's something profoundly satisfying about the simplicity of it. Each bite is a reminder of the work that has gone into preserving the food, of the long hours spent storing away enough to survive the winter. It is food earned through hard labour, and it carries with it a deep sense of gratitude for what the land has given. The fire crackles, casting its soft glow over the room as the peasants settle in for the evening. There is a peacefulness in the air, a calmness that comes from knowing that they have made it through another year. The fire provides not just warmth, but also light a beacon in the long, dark nights of winter. It is a source of connection, not just to the past, but to one another. In the quiet glow of the hearth, the peasants find a moment of rest, of stillness, in the midst of the ongoing work of survival. It is in these moments, surrounded by the warmth of the fire, that they take stock of the past year, the challenges they've faced, the work they've done, and the rewards they've earned. Outside, the wind howls against the walls of the home, the cold biting at the windows and doors. But inside, the fire continues to burn, steady and bright. There is a profound contrast between the world outside and the warmth of the home. The peasants know that the harsh winter will eventually give way to the thaw of spring, but for now, they remain in the present moment, gathering strength for the months ahead. They have weathered the worst of the year, and now, in the quiet of winter, they find solace in knowing that the cycle will continue. Spring will come again, as it always does, bringing with it the promise of renewal, of new growth, and of hope. The fire, once a symbol of survival, is now a symbol of endurance. It is the constant in a world that is always changing, always shifting with the rhythms of the seasons. The peasants know that, just as they've endured the hardships of winter before, they will do so again. The fire in the hearth is the reminder that no matter how cold the night may be, there is warmth to be found, there is light to guide them, and there is hope to sustain them. Historians often comment on the resilience of medieval peasants, noting how much of their lives were defined by the cyclical nature of the seasons. The winter, though harsh, was not a time of despair. Instead, it was a time of quiet strength, of endurance, and of preparation for the spring that would follow. The peasants knew that each season brought its own set of challenges, but they also knew that survival depended on their ability to adapt and to persist. The fire, ever burning, became both a literal and symbolic representation of that resilience. It was the light in the dark, the warmth in the cold, and the reminder that, despite the hardships they faced, they were always moving forward, always enduring, always connected to the land and to each other. As the fire continues to burn softly in the hearth, the peasants settle into the warmth it provides. The cold wind may howl outside, but inside, they are secure. The quiet stillness of winter settles over the village, and the peasants, in their peaceful endurance, know that they are part of a larger cycle. The fire will burn through the long nights, the seasons will continue to shift, and life, in its constant rhythm, will go on. For now, they rest, knowing that whatever challenges lie ahead, they will face them together, as they always have. The cold winds of winter continue to blow fiercely outside, but inside the homes, life moves at its own quiet, measured pace. The fire in the hearth crackles steadily, its warmth filling the room, providing not only the physical heat needed to ward off the biting chill, but also the emotional comfort of knowing that survival has been achieved. The rhythm of winter, though demanding in its own way, has settled into a predictable pattern. The work is no longer frantic. Instead, it is about maintenance, about ensuring that what was planted and harvested will last until the return of spring. The peasants move with a quiet efficiency, tending to their animals, checking the stores of food, and preparing for what lies ahead. The nights grow longer, the days shorter, but there is a calmness in the air that wasn't present before. The work of the year is nearly done, and now the peasants can rest, knowing they have prepared as best as they could. The fire continues to burn in the hearth, a constant reminder of the strength it has provided during the coldest months. It is more than just a source of warmth now. It is a place of gathering, a source of light, a steady presence during the darkest part of the year. The peasants sit together in its glow, sharing quiet moments of reflection, talking softly about the year gone by and the one yet to come. In these moments of stillness, you can almost feel the weight of the past year lifting. The hard work of the growing season, the frantic race to prepare for winter, has passed. Now is a time for introspection, a time to appreciate the comfort of the present and to prepare for the future. The peasants know that the cold will eventually give way to the warmth of spring, that the cycle will continue, and that they will once again find themselves working the land, preparing for the harvest. But for now, they savour the quiet peace that winter brings. The fire is the heart of the home, a constant companion in these long, cold nights. As the wind howls outside, the fire crackles in the hearth, casting a soft, dancing glow across the room. The flames flicker and rise, providing not only warmth, but light guiding the peasants through the darkness, both literal and figurative. It is in these moments, as they sit together around the hearth, that they can reflect on what they've endured. The fire, though simple in its purpose, is a symbol of all they have survived of the harsh winters, the demanding work, and the seasons that have come and gone. The meal, like so many in winter, is simple but nourishing, a hearty stew, made from the preserved meats and vegetables of the harvest, fills the air with a rich aroma. The peasants eat slowly, savoring each bite, the food warmed by the fire and the comfort it provides. There is no need for excess. The meal is enough. It is more than just sustenance. It is a reflection of everything they've worked for, everything they've endured to reach this point. The fire in the hearth, the warmth of the meal, the company of family, all are part of the quiet contentment that fills the room. The peasants, though still vigilant, are now in a phase of waiting. They wait for the thaw that will bring with it the first signs of spring. They wait for the longer days, for the return of the sun, for the work of the fields to begin again. But for now, they rest. They rest in the knowledge that they have prepared well, that the harvest is safely stored, and that they have enough to last them through the winter. The fire continues to burn, steady and unwavering, a reminder that no matter how cold or dark the world outside may be, they are safe, they are warm, and they are together. Historians often speak of the deep connection medieval peasants had to their homes and their land. Their homes were not just shelters from the cold, they were sanctuaries, places where families came together, where traditions were passed down, and where the cycles of the seasons were lived out. The fire, central to this life, was a constant presence. It was the center of the home, the heart that kept everything running, that provided warmth in the coldest months and light in the darkest hours. The hearth was not just a source of heat, it was a place of connection, a place where families came together to share not only meals but stories, laughter, and the comfort of knowing that they had endured another year together. And as the fire burns low, casting a soft glow across the room, there is a sense of quiet peace. The peasants know that the cold will eventually give way to warmth, that the cycles of the seasons will continue, and that they will once again be called to work the land, to plant, to grow, and to harvest. But for now, they take solace in the present moment. The fire, though slowly fading, continues to burn, a symbol of their resilience, their endurance, and the quiet strength that has carried them through the harshest of winters. The hearth, the fire, the warmth, it all remains, a constant reminder of what has been accomplished, what has been endured, and what is yet to come. And as the fire burns lower, the peasants settle in for another night, knowing that they are not alone, that they have each other, and that no matter how long the winter may be, the warmth of the fire will always carry them through. The wind continues to howl outside, its cold fingers pressing against the walls of the homes, but inside the village, the fires burn steadily. The long winter nights stretch out, each one similar to the last, still, quiet and reflective. The peasants continue their work, though it has slowed in the chill. The focus now is on maintaining what has been stored, ensuring that there is enough food, fuel, and warmth to last until the first signs of spring. There is no frantic urgency, no need for preparation. It is a time for tending, for patience, for waiting for the inevitable return of the Sunday. The fire in the hearth continues to provide warmth and light, but now it has become a beacon in the long darkness. It is a place of gathering, where families huddle close together in the stillness of winter. The light from the fire flickers across their faces, casting shadows on the stone and mud walls of the home. There is a sense of comfort in these moments, a calmness that comes from knowing that the harshest part of the year is behind them. The fire is not just a source of heat, it is a symbol of endurance, a reminder that no matter how cold the night may seem, there is always light, always warmth to be found within the walls of the home. The meal shared around the hearth is simple. Like so many others before it, a stew made from the last of the preserved vegetables, the dried meats, and perhaps a handful of grains. There is no luxury here, but there is sustenance. The meal is nourishing not because of the abundance it offers, but because it reflects the hard work that went into preserving it. Each bite is a reminder of the months of labor, the planting, the tending, the harvesting, and the storing that has made this moment possible. The peasants eat slowly, savoring the warmth of the food, the comfort of the fire, and the companionship of their family. There is no rush. In winter, everything moves more slowly, more deliberately. The hearth continues to be the focal point of the home, its steady flame a source of strength. The fire is not just for warmth, it is for connection. The peasants gather around it each night, telling stories, sharing news, and reflecting on the past year. They talk about the seasons that have come and gone, about the challenges they have faced and the triumphs they have celebrated. There is a sense of community here, a deep understanding that survival is not just about enduring alone, but about enduring together. The fire brings them closer, offering warmth not just to their bodies but to their spirits. It is a space where bonds are strengthened, where the simple act of sitting together in the warmth can make even the darkest winter night feel a little brighter. Outside, the snow continues to fall, blanketing the world in silence. The fields are covered in a thick layer of white, the land resting, waiting for the thaw. The trees stand bare, their branches like dark fingers reaching up to the sky. The village seems small against the vastness of the winter landscape, the homes huddled together for warmth, surrounded by the stillness of the snow. But inside, the fire continues to burn, its steady light a reminder that life goes on, even in the coldest months. The peasants may have retreated from the land for now, but they have not retreated from each other. The fire is the heart of the home, and the home is the heart of the village. Historians often discuss the ways in which the medieval peasant community relied on both the land and each other for survival. The cycle of the seasons governed every aspect of their lives, dictating when they could plant, when they could harvest, and when they could rest. But it was also the community that helped sustain them through the long, dark months. Winter, though harsh, brought people together. In the coldest months, the hearth became a symbol not just of survival, but of unity. It was around the fire that families and communities came together, sharing not only food and warmth, but stories, memories, and a sense of belonging. As you sit with the peasants by the hearth, you can't help but feel the quiet strength that emanates from the fire. It is a strength born from generations of living with the land, of working together, and of facing the challenges of the seasons with patience and resilience. The fire is a steady presence in the midst of the cold, a beacon of warmth and light in the darkness. It represents everything the peasants have endured, and everything they continue to endure, season after season. With the fire burning low and the night stretching on, there's a sense of quiet contentment in the air. The hardest part of winter may still be ahead, but the peasants know that they have done what they can to prepare. They are ready to face whatever comes, knowing that the warmth of the fire, the strength of their community, and the rhythm of the seasons will carry them through. The fire, though flickering in the hearth, continues to burn steady, its glow a symbol of all that has been endured and all that is yet to come. The night settles in around the village, the quiet stillness of winter holding the world in its grasp. But inside, the peasants are warm. The hearth continues to burn, a steady presence in the darkness, guiding them through the long night, just as it will continue to guide them through the seasons to come. The fire will always burn, and as long as it does, so too will the peasants endure. The quiet of winter continues to blanket the village, and with it, a profound stillness settles over everything. The snow has thickened, now covering even the roofs of the houses, and the once familiar sights of the village are hidden beneath a thick white veil. The world outside may be cold and inhospitable, but inside, the warmth of the fire remains steadfast, a reminder that no matter the season, no matter the hardship, there is always a place of warmth, of rest, of connection. The hearth, steady and enduring, continues to offer its quiet comfort, bringing light and life to the home during the long nights. Inside the homes, the peasants remain gathered around the hearth, their faces aglow in the firelight. The work of the past months has been done, and now, in the quiet of winter, they can rest. The rhythm of the seasons has slowed, and the urgency of survival has lessened. There is still work to be done, of course wood to be gathered, animals to be cared for, food to be preserved, but for now, The frantic pace of the past year has been replaced with a quieter, more deliberate effort. The peasants are at peace with the stillness of winter, understanding that it is a time for reflection, for preparation, for patience. The fire continues to crackle in the hearth, its warmth filling the room. You can feel the collective sense of relief that fills the space. The fire is no longer just a necessity, it has become a symbol of resilience, of endurance, of the strength it has provided throughout the coldest months. As the family sits together, sharing stories, sharing their memories of the year gone by, they draw strength from the fire. It is not just the warmth it provides, but the way it binds them together, offering a space for connection, for togetherness, for comfort. The winter months are often described as a time of solitude, a time for individuals and families to retreat inward, to reflect, to prepare. But in the warmth of the fire, the peasants understand that it is also a time for community, a time to share, to care for each other, to strengthen the bonds that will carry them through the coming months. The fire, though flickering low as the night deepens, is still a steady presence in the home. Its glow is a reminder that they have made it through the hardest part. They have endured, and they will continue to endure, season after season. As the family gathers around the fire, you notice how the conversation shifts. It's no longer about the challenges of the harvest or the uncertainty of the weather. Now, it is about the simple joys of life, the quiet moments of peace, the hope for the coming spring, the memories of seasons past. There is no rush, no urgency to the conversation. It is a moment of quiet reflection, of contentment, of knowing that the work of survival has been done, and now they can simply be. Historians often describe the resilience of medieval peasants as something more than physical endurance. It was their ability to adapt, to find peace in the rhythms of the seasons, to live in harmony with the land, and to find strength in the quiet moments that truly defined them. The fire, ever steady, is a symbol of that resilience. It is the heart of the home, the place where life continues, where the work of survival is both acknowledged and celebrated. The hearth is where the peasants find rest and rejuvenation, where they can come together and share in the warmth of family, community, and the steady certainty that the cycles of life will continue. And so, as the fire burns on, the village settles into the quiet of winter. The winds may howl outside, the cold may creep in at the edges, but inside, the warmth remains. The peasants know that they are part of a larger cycle, that the seasons will continue to turn, and that, no matter what the future holds, they will endure. The fire, though flickering low now, will continue to burn brightly, a steady beacon in the darkness, guiding them through the long nights of winter and into the promise of spring. As the night deepens, the fire continues to crackle in the hearth. The peasants, surrounded by the warmth and light it provides, settle into the stillness of winter. The work of survival is not over, but the hardest part has passed. The fire, steady and unyielding, is a symbol of all they have survived and all they will continue to endure. And as they sit together in the quiet comfort of the hearth, the peasants know that they are not alone, that the cycle of life will continue, and that the warmth of the fire will always carry them through, season after season. Now, as the fire's glow fades, the peaceful quiet of winter fills the home, and with it comes the simple joy of knowing that, for tonight, they can rest. The work will begin again in the spring, and with it, new challenges, new growth, new life. But for now, there is peace, and in this peace, there is strength. The fire may fade, but its warmth remains, ever steady, ever enduring. Sweet dreams.